Now I do.
Olivia.
We're good. Okay, it's 5 o'clock, so we'd like to call this Santa Clara City Council work meeting to order. I'm Mayor Rick Rosenberg. We have present tonight a full council. Well, Ben's not here yet, but we've got a quorum. Jarrett Waite, Councilman Denny Drake, Councilwoman Krista Hinton, and Councilwoman Lena Mathis is here. We'll see if Ben shows. You haven't heard from him, have you?
I've not heard from him.
Okay, he's probably just running late. This is a work meeting. It runs a little different. We do allow citizen communication and appearances. At the first part of the meeting, if anybody has come to address the council on any item, any subject, we'll give you a few minutes. You have up to 3 minutes to come to the mic and state your concerns or comments. Not getting any takers, so we'll go ahead and move into the working agenda. Item 3A1, this is the discussion regarding a city alliance with Utah Tech and the Shop Local campaign presentation. We've got a bunch of students here from Utah Tech. We want them all to get up there and introduce yourselves as part of this. So you five that thought you were getting out of the presentation, you're still coming to the mic. So.
All right, Mayor, thank you. Just briefly, I wanted to introduce Professor Erin Ortiz, and these are her students that are going to make the presentation. They had a chance to meet with Lena and Jared and myself last week, and they're very excited to be here tonight. And I'll turn the time over to them. Thank you.
Okay. Need you to introduce your name and who you're representing for everybody that comes to the mic.
So my name is Liza Moreno, and I'm here representing Insight Communications today. And then
I'm Gracie Payne, and Insight Communications is just Utah Tech University student-run public relations firm.
Perfect.
I'm Lindsay Kozad, and I'm also representing Insight Communications.
I'm Alyssa Janeway, and I am also representing Insight Communications.
I'm Kaylee Clough, and I'm also representing Insight Communications.
My name is Ashlyn Searcy, and I'll give you one guess as to who I'm representing. Insight Communications at Utah Tech.
TJ Thacker, also with Insight Communication.
Okay. Well, welcome. We appreciate the work you guys are doing. And
Yes, and I'm Dr. Erin Ortiz, and I'm the professor for Insight Communication, which, if you don't know, is the PR firm. It's a student-run PR firm at Utah Tech's campus.
awesome. Okay.
okay, so I'll be starting our presentation. So for the goal for this Shop Local campaign is to increase the economic development of Santa Clara City. We decided to set 2 objectives to reach this goal, one of them being awareness and the other action. With awareness, we want to specifically increase those who consider shopping local to be moderately important to be very important by 10% within 5 months of the campaign running. To make sure that we hit this goal, we want to survey residents using the same questions that we used before on them to see if there's a marked increase from moderately important to very important. And we plan to give this survey out again during Swiss Days 2023. With action, we want to specifically increase the numbers of visitors in the Santa Clara businesses by 10% also within 5 months of the campaign. And with this, Insight Communications will re-interview the businesses, and one of the questions focused on how many visitors per week. So we will be asking that same question. Next slide, please.
So as Liza mentioned, we did an initial survey. We ended up getting about 203 residents in Santa Clara to fill out the survey. The evaluative survey was meant to gather information regarding the current shopping habits of locals in Santa Clara. So the first way we gave out this survey was we went to Swiss Days and we had a QR code and we walked around and we got people to do it in person. And then it also went out on the utility bill in Santa Clara on October 30th. So the images below are what the results of the questions were. So the first question we asked was, where are you from? And 46% were from the Heights in Santa Clara, and 32% were in the Valley of Santa Clara. So majority of people that filled out our survey were from Santa Clara, which is good because we know how many people we can target. And our second question was, how important is shopping locally to you? 38% said moderately important. And after this campaign, we're hoping it's 100%. And then our third question was, where do you typically shop for groceries? 21% said the Harmons in Santa Clara, 20% said Costco, and 18% said Walmart. Next slide. And then continuing the survey, our fourth question was, how likely are you to change your shopping habits if it led to decreasing future taxes in your city, so increasing the tax incentives to shop locally? 23% said they were extremely likely, 40% said somewhat likely. And the word map in the middle of the screen is, the biggest words are the most commonly shopped places in Santa Clara. So a lot of those feature places in Pioneer Parkway. So Harmons was the most popular one in Santa Clara, along with Cafe Rio, Swig, Ace. And then our last question on the survey was, how old are you? 32% said they were 51 to 70 years old, and 29% said they were 36 to 50. So just looking at the results for this survey, because the most responses were from residents in Santa Clara, we are able to cater our Shop Local campaign towards people who are likely to be shopping at businesses in Santa Clara. And knowing where people shop for groceries at chain stores can help us highlight the benefits of shopping locally as opposed to shopping at chain stores in ways that local businesses can cater towards those people that already shop. And the question of how important is shopping locally was to figure out what our built-in audience looked like, people that would be likely to engage with the campaign. And knowing how likely people are to change their shopping habits if it led to avoiding tax cuts is important, because tax incentives could influence consumer behavior if the incentive was persuasive enough to change their shopping habits. And also knowing how old people are is important, because people of the age group that most likely responded are people that have the most buying power in the community. And this can also increase opportunities for the Shop Local campaign. And we also interviewed 16 business owners in Santa Clara. Most of these interviews took place over the phone and lasted about 15 to 20 minutes, but all of the businesses that we talked to were very willing to help us with this campaign. So a few questions that we asked were, what are you currently doing to drive customers into your business? And the majority of people use word of mouth in the small community. People also used ads, and then some had a marketing agency. And then our other question was, what goals would you like to achieve through the Shop Local campaign? And almost everyone said awareness and making the public more informed about the benefits of shopping local, and also building a more client-customer relationship. And then continuing, the most marketing that these businesses do is on their websites, and only a few of them have social media, so we would like to increase that. But the responses from these interviews indicate that business owners are willing to participate in the Shop Local campaign, and they're interested in growing the business, and they know that this will help beyond word of mouth.
And now I'm just going to be talking about the tactical program that everyone in Insight came up with, and just walking you through some ideas we have for promoting the event. So in terms of dates for the Shop Local campaign, we know that the official Shop Local week every year is May 1st to the 7th. However, we want to adjust our specific Shop Local campaign to be April 23rd through the 29th because of several different reasons. The first two being the Ironman competition and commencement for Utah Tech graduates is that weekend that we would be holding the event. So we would just be fighting for a lot more attention, and we wouldn't have necessarily all the resources that we could, just because there's going to be so many places and businesses that are already devoting their attention and time to catering to the Ironman and people that are in town for the commencement. We also know a lot of students won't be in town towards the end of that first week in May. And we know a lot of them want to participate in shopping locally and connecting with these local businesses. So holding the Shop Local week from the 23rd to the 29th would make it more likely for students to engage with the community and with the business as a whole. We also just wanted to highlight the campaign tagline that we have and the logo and just explain some of the design elements and why we included what we included. PJ did a wonderful job of designing this. And one of the first reasonings behind the color scheme of brown and green was to represent the historic character, the scenic beauty, and the collegial sense of community that's associated with the city of Santa Clara. We also really just wanted to reinforce that local businesses and the Santa Clara culture are the roots of this community, and those colors kind of help signify that. And the We Are Open sign symbolizes the welcoming feeling we want people to associate with shopping locally and connecting with local businesses. The tagline Find Love and Local not only speaks to the joy of shopping locally and the appreciation that people have for the local culture and businesses, but we also just want to create a unified front for the residents of Santa Clara from both the Valley and the Heights. And the shop local phrase at the bottom just reinforces the whole point of the campaign, which is just to get people out, connecting with business owners and shopping locally. 4 of the tactics that we came up with were yard signs, stickers, flyers, and banners. After talking with a few of the city council members, we decided that 25 yard signs would be the best number. We can get them printed from anywhere, but one business that we looked into was Star Sign in St. George. The signs would be double-sided and feature the shop logo on one side, and then on the other side would feature all of the businesses that are participating in the campaign. And the signs could be placed along Santa Clara Drive and Pioneer Parkway. They could also be placed elsewhere depending on any areas that you think have high traffic that people would see it. Stickers are another great way to just spread the word. They're quick and easy. I know myself as a student, any event that I go to on campus, if they're having stickers, I will be at that booth because they're just so nice. Like my water bottle and computer is covered in stickers, and it's just a quick way to spread the word about the event and a nice way for people to show that they want to shop local and that they support local businesses. And as students, we can print stickers and other promotional products through the Atwood Innovation Plaza completely for free. So that would be a less expensive way of promoting the event. And then we also talked with a few members of the city council about getting banners put up because the city has an account with Rainbow Signs. So that would just be another great way when people are driving through town, they can get the quick information about the campaign and know when it's happening so they can come out and support. And then we also thought outdoor flyers would be another inexpensive way to promote the event. This is the design that we came up with, but obviously any elements can be changed based to your liking. And we thought businesses could also put these flyers in their windows so that patrons coming into their stores can learn about the campaign and come out and support the businesses. Another tactic that we came up with was a website or just a web page that would serve as a home base for the campaign that explains what the campaign is and why the city of Santa Clara is encouraging people to shop locally. We talked about either having this website link back to the city of Santa Clara's current website or just having a page on the Santa Clara's website that explains all of this. So some of the pages and links that we wanted to include would be the list of businesses that are participating in the campaign and kind of separating them by what type of business they are. Because I know when I'm going shopping, I like to kind of scope out what businesses are in the area so I can plan where I want to go to first. So that would just be a great way for people in the area to learn more about the businesses and what's located here in Santa Clara. We also wanted to include the benefits of shopping locally and how people can shop locally year round so that people kind of develop more of an idea of why it's so important that they should be giving back to local businesses and supporting the Santa Clara culture. Also including information about gift basket giveaway on social media and the Mayor of the Day event, which are 2 different tactics that I'll get into in the next few slides. And then we also wanted to include testimonials from local businesses because we wanted to really drive home that human connection to these businesses and get the businesses' origin stories, learn about the owners, and just put a face to the business. So it's not just some business that's in the area. You feel like you know the person before you even go into their business. And then just having testimonials from frequent patrons about why they love shopping locally and specifically what stores they enjoy. Our lovely Insight member, Kaylee, came up with the brilliant idea of doing a gift basket giveaway on social media. So Insight Communication would talk to local businesses and see which ones would like to participate in making a gift basket. We talked about having the city cover most of the costs of supplying the gift basket, so it wouldn't be so much on the local businesses, but it would just be a great way for the city to connect and give back to our local businesses. And the winners would be picked via social media, and participants would post using our unique hashtag Find Love and Local, which is not used for any other social media campaign, so it would be uniquely ours, which is nice. because people could just click on that hashtag and be taken to all the information and all the social media posts associated with the campaign. And the more someone posts with the hashtag, the more likely they are to be chosen. Kaylee also came up with a great idea to include the tagline of Find Love and Local in the corner of every single post that has to do with the campaign on the city's social media accounts. So if someone's going to that page to learn more about the campaign, they can quickly access the posts that have specific details about what events are happening, what businesses are participating in the campaign. And some businesses we thought to gather baskets from include Bon Appetit Natural Pet Pantry, Power Yoga Southern Utah, More and More Popcorn, Super Bling Coffee Roasters, The Knitting Post, and Vamp Body Art. Press releases are just another great way to serve as a one-stop shop for all information regarding dates, times, and associated events for the campaign. And this would just allow the Shop Local campaign to get dispersed to local news outlets. Also on the website, we could have the press release and we could share it with other local media outlets who produce blogs or magazines. And sending out these press releases would just help the city strengthen their media relations. VMS advertising, which just stands for variable message signs, are used all throughout Utah. I'm sure you've seen them before with the Ironman, and they're mainly used for traffic management or public service announcements, but private entities can actually rent VMS units through a permit process that's outlined in the plan book under the appendix and Appendix B. And these are just a great way to serve as another visual component for the Shop Local campaign. So when people are driving into town, they can see that and already know everything that they need to know the dates. So they're like, all right, I can come back next week and support these local businesses. Another event that we thought would be great to garner media coverage would be Mayor for the Day. So someone would win Mayor for the Day by finding an object of significance to the city that has been hidden within a local business. Hints to where this object is hidden would be shared on social media to encourage people to follow the city of Santa Clara and engage more with their social media accounts. The winner won't influence actual policy or governmental practices, but they would receive a sash. And then we talked about, instead of a cash prize, because that's a little bit difficult to do, doing some gift cards of the local businesses. And then Mayor Rosenberg could give the winner a fake key to the city. And this event not only would serve as a great photo opportunity, but it's just a great way to bring the community together around their love for local businesses.
We need about 365 of those.
Every single day, someone
Every
gets
single
the
day.
mayor.
Next year, I can fish a lot more often.
Like, all right, your turn to determine policy this week. And our last tactic would be a late night shopping event. We know COVID has caused a lot of businesses to close their shops earlier and earlier because it's financially difficult to stay open with limited staff and a decrease in patrons. Hosting a late night shopping event for one night only would not be a significant financial burden on these local businesses because we would only have them open past like 2 or 3 hours past their normal business hours. This event, we want it to feel like a night out on the town. So we were thinking to have live music and appetizers to give the downtown shopping scene a more lively atmosphere. A late night shopping event would also be great for people who can't necessarily make it to those businesses during normal hours. They can come into the community, visit these businesses, and get to know the owners. And after talking with some of the council members, they mentioned that pending permission from Bucks Ace Hardware, we could have the shopping event there and just have the local businesses come and sort of stage booths where they could sell products and just connect with people in the city. That's it for our presentation. And we have outlined in the plan book on page 19 is the timeline, the estimated timeline for when we would implement these tactics. And then the budget, which is also an estimation, would be on page 23. So we're just going to open the floor to any comments or questions that you have.
That was awesome. I'm impressed with the group and some of the recommendations that you guys have come up with. Questions, council? Jarrett and Lena, I know you two have been heavily involved in this. I want some feedback, yeah.
I won't speak for Jarrett, but like Will initially, we both love it. And I think Jim does too. We gave them some feedback when they came and gave us the presentation a few weeks ago. And they've modified some of that and taken that into account. And they've done an excellent job. They've been very thorough. We love everything about what they're doing, honestly. So hopefully, if you guys have other insights, I know they're open to taking it, but we love it.
Any feedback is appreciated.
Yeah.
The other night, the extended hours, Ross at Hearst, they used to do, was it Moonlight Madness? Where you'd think I'd remember because I had to sleep over to guard everything at night. But it was a great event. I mean, they had all sorts of, so if you incorporated that with all the businesses and food trucks and
Yeah, that would be
Fun.
great.
it'd be a good time of year to do that.
And we did choose the option of, I mean, we're a little bit geographically isolated, right? Between Heights and Valley. So we chose the corner of Bucks only because it's walkable with all the businesses there. We've got parking, we've got an extra space for the businesses in town that can come. I don't know, that was
And a
it.
pavilion.
And a pavilion, yes, to house it. That has water and electricity.
No gas.
Yeah, I mean, I was really impressed, as I said before, in our previous meeting. And I love that there's a lot of actionable things and there's going to be follow-up to see if it made any difference. And I think that'll help the city to know if this needs to be an annual event, maybe things we could tweak to make it even better going forward. But yeah, I've been very impressed. I really like the color schemes and the logo, and it'll be really unique. I've never seen a Shop Local campaign look like this, and it's fun. We have our own hashtag. There's just a lot of positives to this.
I'm just going through some of the appendixes.
Yeah.
I mean, it's exciting. You could almost do two of those Shop Late, do one in the Valley and one in the Heights.
Yeah.
Set
that
them
would
up
be great.
seasonally or something like that. Swiss Days is kind of hard, but like the event last night, if you had a Shop Local in the downtown going at the same time, and that may help, you know, the businesses as well as, you know, more things for the people to do once they're downtown. Maybe one in the Heights in the summertime, summer barbecue theme or something like that up there. You'd go a little bit later when it's cool. But fun stuff. Denny or Krista?
I really think you've put a lot of work into this, and the planning of it is excellent. I like the idea of the follow-up to see if it really works. But I think that it would be a very successful event. We just need to figure out how to move it forward. And the mayor's leaving.
Oh, we can add.
We had a little conversation earlier.
We did decide, one thing we did decide is the object that if we're interested in pursuing that they're gonna find will be the Glockenspiel kids. The ones that they sewed and made and have been selling in the
Oh,
museum,
the small ones?
the small ones. That's what, we've got one of those. They've already brought it down. Sherry's already given it. So we have that, and that's, I think, what we'll use for them to find, the object for them to find. To tie it back to the city.
Cool. Very cool.
I think it's awesome, really well thought out, very comprehensive. I really like your ideas. They're really creative. I just had a question about the businesses, how they participate. Is that beyond saying we'll stay open late on the late night, or do they need to do anything more to participate?
I think just staying open late, yeah, because we would we would deal with all the after, like food, music, stuff like that, and they would just stay open.
Okay.
If they were smart, they would run some.
Yeah, for the whole week.
Yeah, some discount. We could encourage them to do that if they wanted to.
Just wondered if there was a way they could help support. I guess we're supporting them, but they could help support the campaign as well.
Yeah.
So.
Pay them sales tax.
Right.
It might be even wise to show what shopping locally does for the local taxpayer as far as dollars and cents.
Yeah. That would be part of the website. I think a big thing would be, what is the economic benefit to the city for shopping locally? Because I think that would serve as a big reason and like push for people to come into the city and support local businesses.
And what kind of the city's been able to do with those additional funds since we started getting them. Hasn't been too long ago where that wasn't a big line item. And now with Harmon's and the commercial growth in the Heights primarily, that's a significant amount of money that we can put back into streets and trails and parks and public safety. everybody over there on that wall wants a little piece of it. So that'd be good information to have.
Definitely.
Mayor, I just wanted to mention one thing that we talked about last week when we met with them as well. This semester is winding down, but many of the students will be involved in the next semester's work, the continuation of this to the Shop Local Week. I don't know if you want to mention that, Professor Ortiz, or if
Yeah, we'll have about 15 students, so more than this semester. And all of us will be focused on taking care of one of the tactics. So we'll have a lot of hands on deck to help supporting getting all of these in place.
Cool. Very cool. Now, the money that's in the budget,
Mhm.
the 3,300 or whatever it was, where's it coming from, Brocky?
Do we know where it's coming from?
Economic development.
Okay, so that's city funds.
Yes.
How much of that, is any of that coming from Utah Tech? Or is that city funds?
From what I understood, it was all coming from the city.
Like the stickers that'll come from you guys, right?
Mhm.
And I'm not being chintzy. I just need to know how much.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Yeah.
we did
To know
talk
where it's
about
coming
it.
from.
We did
Yeah.
talk about it, Lena and Jarrett and I discussed with Brock about having some budget, and we do have some. And that number may go down slightly. Maybe you adjusted it. You had
Mhm.
50 signs. We think 25 would be
Mhm.
ample. We can look at that. And then the banners, just so the council knows, we're talking about the banner arms on the streetlights down
Oh,
Santa
dang.
Clara Drive, those type of banners, not banners in the ground in a park strip, the banners that could be on the streetlights.
That would be.
Having
cool.
some of those would be quite nice.
Mhm.
So that was the thought there.
Yeah, we do have under, in the economic development, fund, we have just general promotion and advertising. Usually our budget's around 8,000. We usually put in there. So there is some funds there
Okay.
to be used.
Cool. You guys are lucky. I had to do bake sales when I was first elected. Well, this is very good, informational. You guys have done a really good job.
Thank
I
you.
think everybody
It's
up
been
there,
fun.
I think.
Yeah.
So very cool. Hope you guys gained something from it.
Mhm.
You know, a lot of nodding.
A lot of knowledge, good practice. I don't think any of us have presented in front of this many people or like a mayor. So that's a big
It's
deal.
pretty tough duty, huh?
Hmm.
No, but thank you, and very professional. If I was going to give a critique, your presentation is very well put together. You guys, your appearance, your tone that you said at the mic is very professional. We appreciate that. Good work.
Thank you guys so much for taking time to let us present to you guys today. And I appreciate getting all of your feedback. We're excited to keep connecting with you next semester to implement all of this.
Great.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
You guys have a good break. Merry Christmas.
Merry
And again, thank you.
Christmas. Thank you.
Okay, item 3A2, discussion regarding Vineyard Drive Phase 1 construction drawings, cost estimates and timeline. Dustin?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Rosenberg and Associates have submitted the design on Vineyard Drive.
Find a
With
competent-
engineer's estimate. Excuse me?
You didn't find a competent.
Bottom of the barrel.
They were our selection of. If you look this over, you'll see there's a slight modification at what's now the 90-degree bend. It's more of a T intersection. We've had some talk about where the stop sign will be, and right now we're kind of deciding down on the future Claude Drive from Vineyards 11, which, by the way, has started this week. So it takes off just from the intersection of Black Rock Road and Vineyard Drive. We have new water streets, curb and gutter up in that section right there. We'll be heading the way down there and go to the end of the job there, which is about Clark Gantz's house and the Olson's home. Call this phase 1. 50-foot street cross section, 34 feet of asphalt, 2.5 feet curb and gutter, sidewalk, 4-foot sidewalk, Kent Fry is obligated to the curb gutter and sidewalk on his side. Brock, would you scroll down to the engineer's estimate?
And a landscape strip on this.
And the landscape strip, correct, block wall. That's a breakdown of the cost involved there. The discussion we need to have is what approach do we want to take with the 9 homeowners and the 10 lots on the west side of the road with these homeowners? I'd like to know your thoughts there. We've, had an ordinance in place that if somebody comes in and develops an existing lot on Vineyard Drive, they obligated to pay for curb gutter and sidewalk. About half of them, I'd say, have just bonded for it. So that as the improvements come through, I think we're holding 2 or 3 bonds on that. So there's not a lot there. We don't have a lot of people approach us that come in and say, we've got the money for curb gutter and sidewalk. Let's get it done. We haven't really gotten anywhere.
Have we created and thought about an SID where the improvements, the curb gutter and sidewalk is paid over a 10-year period, so it doesn't hurt so bad when they, at one point it was $300 a year total.
Yeah.
I don't know what it would be at this point, but
I've done a breakdown of the average cost, which is a little bit high because there's a couple homes there that have got some large frontages like Bruce Anderson and the Thomases. And so it sets a little bit high, but total cost for curb gutter and sidewalk per homeowner is just under $8,000. There's the option to just do curb and gutter, which I'm not a fan of. We did that on Lava Flow and Arrowhead, and the majority of the homes down there still don't have sidewalk. I think if we do it, we need to go through with curb gutter and sidewalk.
I think you have to do an SID. I'll just say it. If the problem is set up now is if you don't, you're basically on the honor. Like you'll pay it, you won't. It's unfair to the entire development.
Mm-hmm.
An SID doesn't mean they have to pay it over 10 years. If they want to pay it, then they certainly could. But if they didn't have the means, it gets stretched. It gives everybody a flexible option to where they could march in and pay their share of it. And then everybody, but I think you need to do it on the entire, I think you need to do it one time across the entire Vineyard Drive on that and just, and set it up, because I know it was everybody in with their pitchforks, but if you don't do it, you're not going to get the funds. You're going to have 30% of the people come in and pay, and that's it.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's the direction we need to go and look at, and $8,000 over a 10-year. I mean, we can set the terms to whatever. We could pay it over 15 or whatever it needs to be. It doesn't, so it's not a burden to the residents, but those that want to pay it can, and I'll bet a large portion of them will. But that way everybody has the option to do it.
Is your $8,000 estimate based per lot, or is it based on street frontage?
It's street frontage. They're all vary on Vineyard Drive.
It's an estimate.
Right.
So if you've averaged all the lots, it probably averaged around 8, but
there's some that are smaller in $3,800. Like Bruce Anderson, he's almost 12,000 because his is so long. The Thomases, they own 2 lots. They're 170 feet, or just one lot that's 170 feet because it's on a corner. So theirs is a little bit higher than everybody else's. Just one thing I do want to throw out there is I really want to get this project done. I put it in the budget to pay for the curb and gutter. I put it in the budget to pay for the water line. And, if that's a route you don't want to go, where we phase this out year by year by year, this is phase 1. And the next project I want to talk to you about is phase 2. If we did this on an annual basis, I can't set the money aside to do this and just get it done and avoid the SID. That's a decision you guys would have to make there if you'd like to go that route, but it is in the budget.
You're talking, it's in the budget for curb gutter and sidewalk, or the utility?
Both. I put money in there for water line. I put money in there for curb gutter and sidewalk. Another thing I wanted to mention is I talked to our city engineer, and he says, since we're upsizing the water, it's impact fee eligible. And since we're making these road improvements for new development, that's also impact fee eligible.
or a portion of it.
There's
There's a couple of issues with trying to do the whole thing. Right now, we don't have, well, let me back up a step. Currently, the road master plan shows a road that connects Vineyard to Santa Clara Drive. It's a long ways away. Can't tell which one it is, but anyway, go back to the exhibit, Brock, the roadway, go back up like a page or two. I'll zoom out. On the far left-hand side, this is Vineyard as it comes down from Black Rock Circle down to the new proposed intersection at the entrance to Kent's Vineyards 11 subdivision. That becomes a T intersection at that point, and the first of the S curves would basically be eliminated. There's been some real feelings about changing the name on Vineyard and changing addresses on some of those residents that front there, and so we need some direction that way. They've threatened to call lawyers and everything else, but if you take that road and take it straight up, and it would basically go up the west side of Fackrell's home that's there, and then the property line between Alts and Katie Beecham's up to Arrowhead, and then continue across Arrowhead northerly to Santa Clara Drive, adjacent to the consignment shop, is the alignment that is shown on the city's road master plan. And it's been on the road master plan for 25 years probably to do that. And so the long-term goal of the city is to do that, but we don't have the right of way to do the next T intersection. That would take either right-of-way acquisition or eminent domain action or something to pick up the right-of-way to do the second 90. Phasing it would maybe buy you a little bit of time. This first phase Dustin's talking about, that heavy line where it says end of phase 1 improvements right there. That's where it would stop right now. Buy the city a little bit of time to maybe get some more money in the coffers and to obtain the right of way from Fackrell's and Dan Fry, who owns both sides, that would allow you to do the T intersection, and then you could maybe move through at the second phase. There's another development that has just come through that Jason Lindsay is doing down on the other end of this.
That's on there, Brock, if you want to scroll down
a couple
to
of
it,
sheets down. This
right there.
So right now we've got two developers that are going in. They're obligated for a portion of the street improvements on Vineyard. And we've got the other side of the road improvements that we could go in and finish that up. I'd hate to see us go in and do just half a street and not pick up the other side, particularly in these two cases. The engineering design on this accommodates drainage issues that we've had for a long time. There's been recent flooding on the Thomas's property. There's been recent flooding on Jason Lindsay's property. The irrigation ditch used to convey the drainage in these areas, and those have been abandoned. They've been filled in a lot of places. There's no curb to collect, and so the entire area sheet flows from kind of north to south through these areas, and where it crosses the road, there's no storm drains, and it tends to cause a problem. We've got a couple of those crossings that are in this reach. This project would include a storm drain that would take it down to Riverwood Lane, where the city has an existing storm drain down there. And so you would pick up some of that sheet flow drainage that's coming off this caused us some flooding problems in the past coming from that area north of Vineyard. And you would route it down through, so you would basically eliminate it going to the south. The same thing happens down on the other frontage. We've got water that comes off the undeveloped properties that are behind Jones's and adjacent to Cache Country
the cul-de-sac that comes off Arrowhead. And so you've got all this water that comes down to Vineyard and doesn't have anywhere to go. It congregates, it crosses, and it negative impacts on the downstream side. These two projects would fix the majority of that drainage. The area in between them is High Point that is running water to Riverfront Circle or bringing water back to these improvements that we're putting in now. And so it's a lot easier to mitigate the drainage for a period of time. Do a phase now, do a phase a year from now, and to do the ends first because there's existing development on the ends, do the center part later. If we do the SID, I'd probably agree, you do the whole thing. Now you'd have to get 50% of the property owner's consent, and this is up to you guys. State law says you have to have more than 50% approve the SID. There is an opportunity for them to protest, the residents to protest. The last time we did this, 20 years ago, there was a ton of protest. We barely made the 50% margin, but the protest was so loud and angry that council elected not to do it.
So
Mayor Drake was there.
Mayor Drake was there.
And a lot of those people are still in
There.
homes.
Yeah, the ownership hasn't changed that much from that tap. So if we can go through a notice of intent to create an SID and we can see what kind of support we've got. If we've got more than the 50, then you could approve it. But even a lot of city councils that I work with, if you don't have 60 or 7% approval, they typically won't force it because you are going to put a lien on their property with it.
So Mayor, just on that then, how do you collect? So here's, again, if we're prepared and you think financially the city can bear the cost, then we bear the cost, but then we better be prepared to reimburse all of those who have put the money in. And we better be prepared to reimburse those that just did it on Arrowhead Trail. I mean, you can't, we pass the ordinance to get it paid for, but what binds anybody if we go do this without an SID, what binds anybody to pay the bill?
Well, and I think the other thing that we look at is that we've required that on every developer. Maybe about 2004, they had put even up on the heights, curb over the sidewalk and half the street at their own expense, which was what each one of those buyers paid for when they bought the lot. These guys have received a benefit. It's hard because you can't maintain a vineyard.
Yeah.
There's no way to maintain the street. It's going to crumble away if you don't put the curb gutter sidewalk in. And so to me, they've been hedging what needed to be done, especially with the irrigation company abandoning the ditches because the drainage was gone. And so we've been over the years, over the last 20 years, I mean, from the Jacksons all the way down, the flooding that's going on that had been able to control it with the curb gutter, it would have happened. And so to me, even if we end up having to do it by the city, there's no way to charge them.
And that's my concern is, again, if we wanted to phase it in, just going back to when we wrote the ordinance, because the problem is we didn't have the money to do it. And we felt that each resident should pay a little bit, albeit, I think at the time it was 6,000. Now it sounds like it averages at 8, but still a pretty minimal cost for, 100 feet of curb gutter and sidewalk. But if we're prepared to say, hey, we're going to phase this in over 5 years and we can use impact fee and other funds that are collected and we can do this over that, then, and that's something the city wants to bear and do without going down the SID, perfect. But I don't think it's fair to those that have already paid and those who have paid in other areas to do exactly what we've asked to do and then just say, well, we're, you paid, but we're not over here. Or to say, well, we're just going to kind of leave it as
a farm.
kind of, your honor system, just we're gonna send you a bill and mean, it has no legal bearing, that there's nothing, you could send them a bill and I could say I'm gonna pay it or not, because there's nothing that binds any resident to us. So then you're gonna get some that pay and some that don't. And what's, I just, again, the SID was the sure way to say we can collect the funds and everyone will pay their fair share and we'll get plenty of time. So it's not a financial burden.
If it's approved.
If it's approved, but if Dustin, I guess that's the thing, if you think you can do it without it, now we've got 4 or 5 other roads that we're gonna have to do the same thing, and
And they're on my bucket list to get done.
They're on the list.
Some of it, we put money in the budget to answer for some of Vineyard. Some of the reason we feel like we can handle that is some of it become impact fee eligible, which we weren't sure. Plus the pricing has came in better than I think we anticipated, which is giving us the funds able to do more than what we had originally anticipated. So money's there. Originally was not budgeted for the city to do it all. That wasn't the original intent of when we budgeted. It was just to do the portion which was based on the ordinance that we adopted, that we would do everything except for the curb gutter and sidewalk, which would be left for the residents. So
And
that's the only reason why there are funds there at the time, is just based on.
understand too that the funds we've set aside, the only thing we get assistance from is curb and gutter and sidewalk.
Yeah.
The entire rest of that project is city dollars.
Yeah.
So we need to have a significant amount of money set aside to cover that, because a lot of those you look at those budgets on those 2 reaches, and there's only 2 items on there that are going to get paid for by residents. So out of that, 350,000 construction cost estimate on the first reach, you're gonna get 25 plus 30 plus 22 back from the residents. So, 25% at the most, residents pay 3/4 of it's going to be the city. So the longer the reach that we do, the more cost. But I like that idea in the beginning. That's why the ordinance was kind of written. I can't remember the name of the ordinance, Matt, the one that was on the improvements on the existing roads, but it was written to encourage people. We have not had a lot of takers. We've had 3.
I've had extensive conversations with owners down there from time to time as I stop by. Anytime you bring up the word SID, they just turn around and walk away from you.
So let me ask a question, because I understand that you can base the SID on frontage, on individual lots. But one of the things we've got going right now, Kent, you're kind of a whipping post on this, but one of the things, if we go by frontage, frontage is a higher percentage than basically the whole street. He could control the vote
In that area.
in that area to the point where 50% is not an issue.
but you wouldn't want to do an SID on every section. I don't think, that's kind of the question I have is on that is, if you do an SID, you'd probably do it on the whole thing, but we're probably not in a position financially to do the whole thing anyway.
You can do multiple SIDs. So you'd have an SID 2023. You'd have an SID 2024.
Can you do it by phasing?
They would pay. Each one is separate and distinct. That's the trick you have to have, is you have to have 50% in every one. So if we phase this, Denny's right on this first one. Kent controls 50%. You get one property only on the other. You're well above. You've got your SID for this reach. Probably the same thing on the Jason Lindsay frontage. He's got half of it. You got the other half, 50%. So if we did an SID right now for these 2 reaches, it would pass and it could happen. I think it would happen just because of the property owner's frontage control. Now, when you come back to connect them up, you don't have a developer owning the large frontage. So you're dealing with existing homes and some of the difficulties we've had historically. My hope would be is they would look at it after you get one of these phases done and complain that you didn't include them in the phase and
Yeah.
here's my money, but you don't know that.
How many phases are we estimating to complete the whole thing? Any idea?
About 4.
I was gonna say 4, 3 or 4, depending on how big that third phase was.
We have another issue that's involved in this is a number of those homes that voted against the SID originally have non-opposition agreements that are signed and dated where they would not oppose an SID.
When were those done?
That was why that's how they got their building permits on
But-
Vineyard.
Matt can chime in on this.
Whitwer, I mean, there's a number of them.
Jude Whitwer, Jeff Whitwer.
Opposition agreement.
Well, we've learned.
But the legal counsel then said those were invalid. It was Russ Scallion's.
No, he didn't say they were invalid. He said that the bonding agent said, we want everybody to vote, regardless of whether there was an SID or not, an opposition. And so the bonding agencies wanted us to have 60% of the ownership. And that included those that had signed non-opposition agreements. And at the time, the SID that we were proposing went deeper than frontage. There were actually off-street properties that we felt were impacted by the street. And so they were a part of that SID.
It was a bigger area like Riverfront where Greg Kemp lives was included in that assessment area, even though he didn't get any frontage improvements. I think it was a per lot or area.
It was, and it differed depending on the depth that you were away from the frontage. And so it was kind of an unusual plan, but it was to help offset the costs for the frontage. But in essence, we did have 52%. And we could have gone ahead with it. But our bonding agent advised us not to. And so the council went with that advice.
Denny, you talk about on Kent's just on a, if I understand right, though, Kent wouldn't be part of, with the SID. As he has the development
doing-
rights that he
right.
would have to do. So I don't know that he would have a vote in.
But we could include him because his frontage is along that road. You could include him if he wanted to be a part of that SID.
Probably only if he delayed his. subdivision.
Or he did it all at one time.
Yeah.
That wouldn't have to delay it. He could still be a part of it. You can pay it all off.
Yeah, he paid off early. Still
And
be a
so it
part.
wouldn't change anything he's doing.
Matt's got something, I know.
Yeah, I mean, I guess theoretically, Denny, that could happen. I just think under current conditions, Kent's probably way ahead of any SID, and he's got an obligation to make improvements under the subdivision
Right.
ordinance
I
anyway.
agree.
So I just don't know that happens unless Kent really puts the brakes on. So
Okay, Mr. Fry, you wanted to say something? Where's my 3-minute timer?
He gets an hour and a half there. You know, you changed the rule last.
I can cuss for 3 minutes.
Chief, get ready.
Well, one of the surprises that came to me is this basically started probably a year and a half ago. And it was, would you, if you develop the farm, would you participate in the SID, even if we delayed Vineyard and did not make it part of your subdivision? And I said, absolutely. And here is just the last 10 days or so, I found out, no, we want you to pay for half the asphalt. When I was told, no, SID, you'll pay for, we're going to landscape that side of Vineyard. And there's a common area and make it very pretty. And so basically, I've been under the assumption that I was going to do curb, gutter, sidewalk, and the landscaping. And of course, we'll have a wall there too, a privacy wall. So it will set off and be very nice. But I'm with Ben. I've been talking to 2 or 3 of the neighbors. And all you've got to do is have most of the people know that 1 or 2 people did not pay. And there will be some really tough feelings. Where right now, most of them, especially knowing that even, I think it's how you approach them, but knowing that they can do it over 10 years. And because of some recent flooding, everybody, I'm gonna say, I would be very surprised if we don't come up with 75 to 80%, including the developments. And it's like Greg Kemp just said, I said, wouldn't you pay 1,000 or 2,000 out of Riverfront Estates? And I think you'd find out that yes, same reason, because of flooding, that there are people that are off Vineyard that would be included in the SID and help contribute. And I believe you've got the vote for the SID all the way up and down Vineyard. I was talking to the Thomases yesterday, right after Dustin. I don't know where Dustin went. Right after Dustin and I was talking behind me.
Be careful what you say, right behind.
He always hides on me. And on the curve there. And after being flooded, him and the fat girls and Smootzes, I think that they would change their mind. But if they found out someone else didn't pay their share, they don't want to pay either because they know the city will pay. So I guess I've in working with Dustin, I feel a little bit like switching bait, like I was told one thing, and then all of a sudden it was turned upside down on me on what I was represented to proceed with my subdivision and then participate in the SID. And I was kind of under the influence, get your subdivision going. We can't engineer Vineyard until you get your subdivision engineered. We'll do it simultaneously. And if the SID takes longer, we'll just finish the SID behind your subdivision, but everything will connect and work properly. So any questions?
Interesting, Kent, because I think when the original SID was proposed for Vineyard, we actually engineered the whole road. That's why in front of Shan Goobers, there's curb gutter, sidewalk, because we'd actually engineered the whole thing, and people, after the SID didn't pass, they went ahead and put it in, but they had to put it in according to the engineering that was already done.
There's reaches of that were redone.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think because of the flooding and.
Well, because of the flooding and the storm drains, the reconfiguration of, taking the escutern out of it. Everything that was done originally was within the existing right of way.
Right.
And didn't have a lot of the drainage, and a lot of the drainage really came to light after the SID was.
Yeah, the irrigation company hadn't abandoned.
We still have the ditches and everything else. And so the design is very similar in areas like where Shan's curb and gutter and stuff in it matches exact. But there's other areas like in front of Thomas's and Olson's where it's vastly different in order to meet the new requirements. So.
But I'll tell you, when you talk about taking Claude up all the way, it's like Dan Fry. And we've had some serious conversations, and I think the city comes in and says, you know what, would you deed the road? Would you deed the area for the road? If we gave you ran the laterals for the sewer and water and so on with some concessions, the answer is going to be yes. He will deed that tomorrow. And
You must have talked to him after I did, so that's good.
I know, I'm telling you, and maybe part of it's me and knowing my neighbors and stuff, but maybe the city will want to hire me at my hourly rate, which is a social security, which is a social security
There's
rate.
too much vacation in that.
And but no, I would gladly help spearhead it, but the Andersons are ready to go. I think you'd find. Got to be a little bit careful how I talk here, because Brother Lang, depending on what he remembers or doesn't remember, he's actually got a positive attitude and I think wants to see it done. And so.
Anyway, that's kind of why we're here, council. Thank you, Ken.
Okay.
Appreciate that. Is Justin needs some direction if we maintain the existing policy.
Greg.
Oh, no.
You have a yellow farm, man.
3 minute clock on for sure. Brother Camp, do you need to say something? Okay. Come on. We need to be thinking what the bond rate's gonna be.
I'm being abused before I even
Mm.
started. Nico. Yeah.
I asked Chief what I do to people to get on my nerves up here.
Yeah. He's already measured me for cuffs. So I've lived in the home that I'm in for 30 years. I paid for sewer, curb, gutter, sidewalk, street, and storm drain. I have a storm drain at the front of my house that goes halfway through my property. And when the dam broke, between me and Ernie and Tyler and some of those guys, we got all the water. I don't know how much of it would have been abated had the council pulled the trigger on the first SID, but I think a lot. I'm troubled by this idea of doing one section and then another section and leaving me in the mouth of the fire hose in the middle. If you're gonna do it, do it. How many times do you want to go through this drill? I mean, we did it 20-something years ago when you were the mayor, Denny. And the other thing is, I'd kind of like to fix or come up with a solution for the storm drain that starts on my property and ends on my property and does not find its way to the river. It hasn't been a big problem because all it is pasture right now. But every now and then, when we get a gully washer and all that water comes down there, there's only one place for it to go, and that's on me. And as to the question about being able to afford it, it cost me $250,000 to pay for that flood. $8,000 is chicken feed. There's a whole lot of people out there saying, well, I can't afford it. I don't want. Hey, tell them to see me. I'll help them out. I mean, there's those of us who will benefit. You know, I can't speak for my neighbors, but I just think it's ridiculous that we're letting the tail wag the dog here. That's all I've got to say.
Hey, that's not bad.
Jeez. Should have paid like 300,000 per your lot, and then that storm drain would have been extended to the river. I was a developer.
Mayor, I've got one question, unrelated but unrelated. So you talk about Cloud Drive extending all the way to Arrowhead, and then on the plan it shows it coming through intersecting on Santa Clara Drive. Is that something we still? So I've looked at that. I've looked how close the proximity it gets to that intersection that's already there, and we've already got really good access out two other ends, one with a light. I mean, maybe that's not something we need to answer tonight, but
Well,
is there a purpose for that? Maybe they're missing something on that.
Well, there was originally. What was happening was that road, Vineyard, was continuing on down, and there was a crossing that would have gone across to the South Hills. So that road was going to be a major access up to Vineyard, up to Santa Clara Drive. With what's changed going south, I'm not sure that you do need to connect it to Santa Clara Drive, but the fact of the matter is it was master planned there, and Claude Drive, in fact, Vic, Danny's dad, came to me when we put the master plan together, was not a happy camper. And I suggested if he had an alternative, we could certainly look at the alternatives. And so anyway, but understand that's really why it was there to connect to.
Okay.
Well, there's no north-south connectivity between.
No.
Is this Heights?
Yeah.
The road right here, Heights Drive, between Heights Drive and Lava Flow. There's no north-south other than those two. So all the traffic coming out of this entire area is either going to Heights or it's going to Lava Flow Drive. Lava Flow Drive is got 29 feet of asphalt. It has less asphalt than what we're proposing on Vineyard. So if we're going to change the master plan and eliminate, and this has been discussed, Dustin's talked about, because of the difficulty in getting the right of way up through there, do we need it? I think you do. The engineer in me says yes.
Well, and as we develop Kent's property and stuff, that
Cause this
goes
is,
another 30.
now you've got right now that look, the vineyards where Kent's house is goes down and out Malaga. It can't come up the vineyard. But now you're gonna connect it up to where it can. And now that can come up to vineyard and now we're right back to lava flow and heights, depending on what direction they're going probably. You've got the undeveloped property in between Arrowhead and Vineyard that will need access
Yeah,
in the future. So there's
Yeah, and
gonna have to be a road.
I can see
Somewhere to
that
go
getting us to Arrowhead. It's just, and then you have
But now Arrowhead's only 29 feet of asphalt too.
yeah.
So those are narrow, the way they were built back when the vineyards 1 and 2 were done. And then the project that followed that up, the street improvement project that worked on those two were built to based on the current master plan. And so they have narrower widths. So I still support the road that goes up through there. I recognize that it's going to be it's on the master plan right now. And so if those undeveloped properties come in, they're gonna have to help build it, dedicate the right of way and build it as part of their entitlements. They wouldn't be able to get around that. I think you need that other outlet up there and it's got some challenges on the design, but we've already run the storm drain, the sewer. You got, where'd Gary go? He's got plans to run his power line down through there
does.
very quick or soon.
Yeah.
There's a corridor that's coming down through there right now that we've started to build in based on the master plan. So if we want to change the master plan, fine, we'll work around something. But we probably need to be thinking about upgrading some of those other roads as traffic volumes increase, and they will.
So Rick, may I ask? So to me, what we're talking about is either phasing or doing it all at one time. If you want my personal opinion, it will be just as easy to do it all at one time to get the SID. If that's the way we're going to go, then it would be to do it in phases. I think that we've got enough new people on that new section, Thomas's, or you get over to Jack's, Lindsay's and those areas. And I already know the Shanguber piece and they're all in. So to me, I think we pursue it to do it all, just get it.
Under the SID, so you can force.
Yeah.
people in.
I think everybody ought to be a participant. I think there's a lot of people that have received a lot of benefit. I mean, we tried to maintain those roads, which are next to impossible to do. And I think we need to get it all done, and the sooner the better, but.
And just for the minutes, it's not an SID anymore, it's an SSA.
Special assessment area.
Special assessment area, the legal. Would probably require a bond. Well, it'd have to be a bond because
Yeah, because they'll pay it
they'll
off.
be lending over 10 years. What's the bond rate?
I don't know.
Hi.
They're high.
I heard
They're high. I haven't looked at them.
4, 5,
Higher-
6.
higher
That
than
means
they
it'll
were.
sell quick.
Say in the fives.
What's
Yeah,
the
I-
timing? And I'm not asking this to phase it because I agree with what Councilman Drake said, but if you were to phase it, you're thinking you'd have the funds in 4 or 5 years anyway, wouldn't you? And so
Yeah.
you could still commit those same funds. Even though you've got to bond it, you could still commit those same funds to pay that bond off quicker. So, I mean, if you're going to phase it over 5 years, just say, hey, we're going to pay that bond off in 5 years with those same funds,
Well,
but get it done in a year and a half.
the bond gets assessed to the property owner. So to give them 10-year financing, the bond would be set up for that. What we would do is reduce the amount of the total bond by using city funds to pay the portion that the city's obligation is. So instead of bonding for 1.4 million, you may be bonding for, somewhat less, maybe less than $1 million.
But you'd have to bond when you're saying bonding, you're talking bonding the city's portion of the,
You'd probably, to do the whole thing, you'd probably bond a portion of the city's stuff, and then you'd pay that portion back.
But and the whole bond is paid by the property owner. I mean, whatever we're bonding for, the property owner, that actually becomes a lien on the property. And they, whatever we set it up for is over time.
Let me ask
Under
you,
the SSA, right? That's what
Yeah, yeah,
I'm speaking if we didn't phase it.
well,
The city would
you-
still have to probably bond for, we wouldn't have the funds to do our side. So we're probably talking two bonds. Or is it all under one
both
bond?
be
It's-
all under one, I think.
Because the city would have to bond for our portion, which is the infrastructure and asphalt.
We might, because if you did the whole thing, the assessment that goes out to the property owner that creates the lien would be for their curb and gutter and sidewalk. So that's a number. And then the other part of it would be, the city would be on the hook for that. How we guarantee that, I'm not sure we can do the normal method because property owners aren't going to be liable for the whole thing, only their curb and gutter and sidewalk.
And we'd almost have to set aside a tax of some kind
Yeah.
to guarantee the bond.
You'd have to use sales tax, obligate sales tax or something else
Use our street maintenance funds.
as part of your bond. That would be the guarantee. So,
One problem we've got, we really need to move forward with this phase one. The way that Claude Drive ties into the 90-degree bend at Vineyard, there's a large cut there. With utilities are all being tied in right there.
yeah, we may have to spend some of your money right now as part of the subdivision improvement. And then it may not be part of the SID.
Or, and maybe what we do is that first phase that you're talking about, you SID it separately, but we pursue the SID on the rest of it instead of tying it all together, like Ben said, maybe making two SSA.
Yeah, there's a little bit of a risk there on that middle section. And then you would have to get every one of these guys to pay their share. You let one guy go without paying, you got to pay for everything. So that's one decision. Do we do an SID to allow financing for, to pursue it is the second decision. Do we leave the road master plan as it is? Do we change it? There's a third decision. And then how big of that phase you want to bite off in the SID? There's your last one. So there's 4 real decisions that Dustin needs input on.
How long does it take to get the paperwork going on it? I mean, again, if we're down at the 11th hour, we probably should have had this discussion
90 days.
4 months ago.
Creating an SID. I know there's 60-day average or public
Yeah.
comment.
Yeah, it's about a 90-day process. I mean, probably at the fastest.
You have to have design to apply for that.
Well, the design is probably far enough along you could do it. You just need cost
You
estimates.
just need costs. Yeah.
You got to be able to notify the property owner what his assessment is before you give him the public hearing opportunity to come and protest.
But we haven't designed the whole project yet.
The whole thing, well, but it's pretty close. It's designed enough to come up with that estimate.
Okay.
We've designed it all the way through from where the curb ends by Tom Gubler's all the way up through this is designed.
I think you.
And not to be negative, but my feeling is that we're obligating the entire city. Most of the citizens in Santa Clara have curb gutter sidewalk. And so we're obligating them through the SSA and the assessment to pay that off in case those others don't. So it's a mixed can of worms. But if they want their roads maintained, I think there's only one way to do it, and that's to create something like that or Vineyard, you patch it and
Well, we're going to be, this has been number one for the whole time I've been here. We're we could delay it 15 years and be right here having the same discussion. And my feeling is I know we need it now, then let's start it tomorrow morning and get it going. So we have the paperwork and again, you sit there and say, well, we could section these two off and do it. And then you're right. We leave a little bit of risk on phase 3 or phase 2, if you call it that, on the SID. But I think if we're close enough on this design, I would love to have the residents here and have that discussion and say, look, we provided.
We probably could, I think you can, we could advertise an SID for the whole thing. Go through the protest period and dial it back based on what you heard. If you wanted to.
But you could still, well, yeah, I was going to say I just think you're going to have the same discussion both times, whether you do it one time or twice. So let's get all the residents here. And I think you're going to have, a lot of them that are in support of the majority. I would agree with what Ken said. I think we're getting north of 70, and it's going to be because the neighbors are going to be speaking with the neighbors about what it is. There's going to be some that are just going to be no. I was shoveling mud from a driveway after the flood that was sat there and wanted to argue with me of why they did not need curb gutter and sidewalk and storm drain, as I literally shoveled mud to save their house from flooding. And so that's just the reality. But and everybody I've spoke with, it's that number, the majority, and I got to believe those are going to give, talk with their friends. And if we give them an avenue to where it can be paid, to where it's not a financial burden, I think we've left it. Again, the ordinance is it's a small burden to the residents on that. So yeah, and Lena, you wanted to say something, so I didn't mean to.
Well, I was just going to ask Dustin, the urgency with this phase, can it wait 90 to 120 days?
Well, that's what I wanted to bring up next was if we could just get the water line done. This contractor I've got down on Santa Clara Drive, they're willing to go down there and start right on that.
It's our cost anyway.
Yeah.
What?
That's our cost anyway, isn't it? So
Yeah.
It's our what?
That's our
we're
cost.
paying that. The city's
Yeah.
paying that anyway. So
Yeah, and I have that in the budget. It'd be a deal like we're doing there. They'll do the main line, we'll do the services, which will save us a ton of money. That way we can get that water line down to the elevation we need in that intersection.
So the question is can we exempt those funds out, use those funds to increase the water line now, and then take the 90 to 120 days and do the whole project?
You could spend whatever city dollars the city's obligated for anytime. It wouldn't have to be part of the project.
And I need to do the same thing at Jason Lindsay's because he's putting in new asphalt and I don't want him to do it over the old water line. We need to at least finish that portion right there out past his subdivision. And there's a little storm drain work there that the city will have to do too. Those are the two things I'd like to try to move on now if we're going to go through this SSA process.
That would be my vote.
So SSA, the whole thing.
I'm interested to hear what Jarrett's got that look on his face. I'm interested. He's been there quiet the entire time.
Yeah, I've been
So I'm seeing that look. So I'm real interested in this.
And I'm willing to go through the SSA process and just see what the feedback is. But at the same time, I think when this first came to me, I was very strongly felt like I need to pay their fair share down there. It's not fair to the rest of the citizens. But I've softened on that quite a bit since then. And we live in a city, we all support each other. These are residents that have been around for a long time. They've been paying property taxes for a long time. They support our city at all of our city events for a long time. I just feel like we could just pay it out of city funds and I wouldn't feel bad about that at all. That's just part of being a city and we support each other and it is a lot of money, but at the same time, sales taxes are up like we just talked about. And so I could go either way and be happy with it, to be honest.
It's only $52,000 on a $350,000 project.
Yeah, but again, going back, if we're going to do that, we better be prepared to refund everybody else.
I'd want to know what that number is.
We just assessed them on, I just, do you go to Chad?
Yeah, there's five houses.
And if it's just the curb gutter and sidewalk,
Well, those, but you've got Chad Gates that has his money in there. And I was interested listening to Ken on the asphalt. Did Chad pay for his asphalt when he developed
His
that?
Curb and gutter. He got a corner lot exemption, so he only paid for one side because it was a corner. I don't know how much asphalt.
We paved Camus Lane and I believe there was a reimbursement in there from Chad for his portion of the asphalt.
I'd be interested on it because I look at this as well going, even though Vineyard, they back the Vineyard, they don't access the Vineyard except for Claude Drive there.
Well, but adjacent property puts in the adjacent improvements.
Yeah.
Per the development code.
Be interesting if we'd done that on some of these others.
Solace.
Well, yeah, up there, I'm just saying on Vineyard Drive, specific to Vineyard
Well,
Drive.
there hasn't been new development per se, other than a single family
Since
home on Vineyard Drive.
Right.
Great Camp subdivision.
Yeah, since Riverfront was done. And Riverfront did from their curb returns down. Down into the
Yeah,
subdivision.
Yeah, down into the subdivision.
Didn't do much, but they don't have a big frontage on Vineyard. The way that subdivision comes in, their frontage on Vineyard's pretty tight,
Mhm.
the way the property line.
It's going to be tricky in this first phase because, Kent's going to put in his curb and gutter and it's going to have to take that grade cut down into that intersection.
The intersection will have to be built. So as
Oh.
part of city obligation to facilitate the development, that intersection will have to be built.
So if this SSA isn't in place, who pays for that curb and gutter?
City
To
cost.
At least get that
The
in.
intersection would have to be, you may not do full width,
Mhm,
but the traffic component would have to be, and the drainage, traffic and drainage would have to be done
mhm. Which includes curb and gutter.
to the storm drain.
And I'm fine if we want to go Jarrett's route. I just think you can't, I just think you go address those 7 or 8 homes that have paid it already. And I just don't think you can say, well, we're going to charge you just because you didn't come out with your pitchforks. We charged you, but the others, I don't like that. I just think it's wrong. And so if we can find the funds to do it, again, this was top of my list of what needs to be taken care of. And
Mine too.
and so I just don't think you can do half and half. If we're content saying city's gonna pay the entire cost and we're gonna get that road up to spec.
I'm hearing SSA I'm feeling like it's a majority to try the SSA. Is that right?
I'm for the SSA.
Me too.
I'm either way, like I
I've heard
said,
a couple that will, if the city can do it and phase it over time, they're okay with that too, but is the majority to pursue the SSA? Or just city funded?
I'm in favor of the SSA.
SSA.
I'm
Okay,
SSA.
so we're going forward with an SSA. We'll probably do the SSA on the whole thing.
Okay.
But
So
we can phase it even after we've done
Yeah.
the
you could maybe carve some pieces out, but I would probably just do the whole thing. Gonna run into a bunch of fun games trying to.
But
do
you'd
that.
be okay if we got the water line done.
And I think your bids
Yeah,
come in.
with our portion, I think we don't wait. We get it done.
Any improvement that's city funded, I think you can move forward if you've got the budget.
Okay. All right. Very good. Thank you.
Is that all you were asking? I was asking, no, okay, road master plan. We okay with the road master plan as it is? You want to bring it back?
I think it's reviewable. I still think I like it. I like the road master plan, but I think it's certainly reviewable. If there's a reason not to do it.
I think it's too tight to the
I don't-
intersection.
It'll be a few ways out before we can get that right away. So
Yeah.
it doesn't have to be a decision that's made now.
The only thing that has to be made now is to do you're gonna do the whole thing. That curve,
We build the entrance into the
you're
road.
gonna at least build the
Radiuses.
intersection that goes up to it.
I agree.
All right.
Okay.
And I think you've got to go, again, I think Vineyard to Arrowhead's because you're connecting a fairly large amount of ground there that's gonna have homes. It's the next one and how that ties in so close to the intersection on Santa Clara Drive that where you've already got two.
So actually, you could go across the Graff property and tie it right into your light. Only
Mhm.
just offset a little bit.
You'd have to take.
A stack.
Roundabout.
That's
Have to take a house.
And Mayor, obviously you're the engineer and it just seemed like it was going to bring that out and which I think is going to be a fairly, where they could go both directions away. You got the one light on, but it just seemed like it was pretty tight to bring that out and what that does to the main intersection
You
there.
basically would buy the whole property from Nick Fry. You buy the whole piece, and you'd probably be able to sell a remainder after you got the road done.
The other thing to consider is you're giving up valuable commercial ground for a road and I think that's where we need to find out if it's absolutely, could it go out those other
Where
two?
are you at on the bringing back the general plan? Have you started any work on that, on the general plan update? Just put that on your list to include as part of the general plan update consideration of the road master plan. Particularly to Claude.
Right.
Mayor, can I say my piece about Claude Drive?
Absolutely.
I'm taking off my city attorney hat right now. I'm putting on my
You have to
resident
go out
hat.
and do that.
I will. Do you want me to? No, the mayor and I talked about this the other day and Dustin was there, but as someone who lives on Claude Drive, I do have concerns about the way that it's punched through. I think actually, if you look on the road master plan, Claude Drive shows as ending at Vineyard. It doesn't show it punched through the existing Vineyard S curve. It does show, a connection up to Santa Clara Drive, but the way that this is being engineered, it's continuous. You could drive, essentially from my house to Santa Clara Drive once the road is punched all the way through, theoretically, without having to turn. And that's a very different configuration than we envisioned when we built our house in our neighborhood. We always knew we'd have neighbors in Kent's subdivision that he's working on now, and we're happy about that. But I really don't want Claude Drive to turn into another country lane, where you have people speeding through to get from one end of town to the other. I think it can be mitigated with, traffic control, stop signs, whatever. I also frankly am concerned for those people on Vineyard Drive who are having to change their address, if we're renaming that section of Vineyard Claude Drive. And that's essentially what we're showing on the plans. So, I just wanted to make a record of that I'm concerned. I think there's others that would be concerned too. Not for the connection to Santa Clara Drive, at least for me. I think that makes some sense. But having it be a throughway is a concern for me, as we want it to remain more of a neighborhood street. So I'll put my city attorney hat back on and be quiet now.
Thank you, Dustin. Did you get all your questions answered?
I did, thank you.
Okay.
So we probably need to talk to our bond counsel to find out exactly what needs to be done, and how long it takes.
We'll start working on bond council and the SSA requirements. Keep you updated. Okay, item 3A3, public safety discussion. Brock, Chief. Is that you?
Sure. All right, good evening. So we can go to the next slide there. I'm gonna give an update of where we're at with some figures, numbers. I think the result of this discussion regarding these numbers my approach to what we're doing for the budget is basically a program-based budget. So the previous budget we had, like, for example, we had fuel at $17,000. What we're doing now is we're integrating all of the Polaris, all of our accounting software into basically like software where we can track all of those numbers and figures. So fuel costs for the year, we're already almost at 100% of our total fuel balance. So the software that we have, it allows us to project out what would the cost for fuel be in a year. And so those costs obviously have gone up. Last year, before the fiscal year, we were just running basically that ambulance. So more vehicles running, more costs with it. So, and again, on these line items represent your guys' policy, basically is what it is. So for the fire department, some new categories that we have, we'll get into it. But special operations, it's on my right side there, about halfway down. We didn't have any type of funding for that. And so my goal is to basically assign $1 to every single thing that we do cost. So we account for hopefully 99% of every single cost that we have. And we're not necessarily doing that right now. We don't have that kind of granularity with it. And what we did, what I had the guys do, basically each person up here on this line item is assigned to a program, and they run that program. EMS, we have Ryan Moore runs our EMS program. So it's about 120,000. That includes all of the licensing, the certifications, all of the costs for the medical supplies. And so for like medical supplies, we don't know what our volume is, and that software allows us to project what's the cost going to be. And so we just started that the last 3 months. And all of the captains were assigned each one of these line items. We met, and basically went through what I tasked them to do. Basically, these packets represent each of those gray boxes up there, each line item. And they have receipts in here. So every single cost we got estimates done for, like, let's say we're going to purchase fitness equipment. We got cost analysis done for that. If we had a conference, what's the cost going to be on that? So that's what these represent. And that's why I think I'll show you the increase in costs. I think it's going to be different, guaranteed, from next year or from last year to this year coming up. It's just the facts on like fuel costs usage is going to go up. We're running more equipment. And that's, again, for you folks, obviously, and then Ivans as well, to decide, hey, which programs do we want? Which programs do we not want? Like volunteer programs, obviously huge cost, $64,000. That we've allocated its own program, and then we can talk about that. Might be a more detailed conversation, but I know Ivans is heavy on the volunteer program, so it's a decision amongst you all to figure out what we want to do. Obviously, EMS, I'm pretty sure we're going to keep that in there, but maybe we cut out certain training seminars and those things. So this presentation, along with the our spreadsheets, are working data. So like this, hard to see, but this spreadsheet basically is each line item, and it covers, like I said, every dollar has a seat and it attached to something. So we did that for the overtime costs, salaries and wages. Debbie worked a spreadsheet for what are those costs for every single individual. So we get the FICA, we get the retirement, the healthcare, all that stuff mapped out. So that's kind of the overview of what we're doing for our proposed for next year, where we want to go. Go to the next slide. That's just a breakdown of the percentages of last year's budget to this one now. So compensation, we're still about 80%. Capital outlays about the same, and same for operations. So go next slide. So that's where we're at now. We're at 2.368, about is what it is with the capital cost. Personnel compensation is at 1.9. You can look at the figures, obviously, yourself there. So the increase for next year, 20% on compensation. Operations is 24%. Total budget 21%. We'll go to the next slide. So I think this is probably the important slide to look at and kind of decide. At least it explains what the costs are. So, and again, if there's any questions on those, both city managers and our finance folks have the granular details on each line item, if we're interested in looking at all of that. So Compensation that was proposed, 6.5% COLA increase. So salaries and wages, the FICA goes up with that. And then insurance costs, we're asked to project possible 8% insurance costs for healthcare. And so events and constant staffing overtime. So all the events that we are assigned, there's about 13 of them. We get revenues, obviously compensation up 100 to 125% back from those. For example, the Ironman when we go out there. This year, we just kind of have a pool of salaries and wages. We're not really haven't budgeted for those events. So what we've done is tried to go through from folks that have been around a while and events that we've had and tabulated every event. What does each event cost? It's about $2,000 per event. And put that in there, budget that. And so those are overtime costs, meetings, like Ryan Moore for EMS, he's going to EMS meetings. He has to go to them. Certain amount of personnel need recurrent like AHA certifications. And so we're trying to train everybody on duty on shift, but you can't always capture everybody. Some folks will expire, they have to come in off duty. So we have those costs allocated. And then the overtime is the biggest cost. It's about 100,000, that constant staffing. So this year we're up to about 60,000 in overtime that wasn't budgeted. And that's because somebody went off on injury time. And so right now our current staffing, if you don't know, we have 4 at Rachel and 2 up at Ivans. And that's the minimum. We have to have 2 on every piece of equipment to run it for EMS standards. So before we opened the station, we we're doing a kind of a 3-2 where we had some wiggle room where if somebody got sick, we could still keep going and we wouldn't have to call somebody back in. But the way we're configured now, we absolutely have to get somebody on that piece of equipment. So, and the obvious option is we could shut down one of the pieces of equipment or the station. And I would obviously highly advocate for not doing that. So that's a big increase in cost. Like I said, that overtime to get somebody here. And we tabulated basically the average accrual for sick, vacation, holiday. We went through each of that. We gave basically a time and a half average hourly rate to calculate that overtime cost. And so those folks are going to take a vacation. They're going to take, like we talked about last week, they're going to take those compensation time off. We haven't budgeted for it this year. So next year, that's why I wanted to say, I'm going to get a dollar amount and put it for every single cost that we have. And we did a little bit for, hey, if somebody gets injured, we are allocating costs for that. So there's some other costs in their FLSA that we have to pay as we moved into the schedule, the 4896 schedule that they're on. So that's about $30,000. And then we're advocating for another admin position, basically like Chief Holda's position. So we respond, I don't know, what your guys' awareness is of the response. So for fires and large calls, like are coming from home. So we share the duty basically for the weekend. And we'd like to get somebody else on that. The whole goal for me is to get 3 battalion chiefs on shift 4896. And they cover command, HR stuff, 24/7, 365. But this would be one to fill out that 3 ABC battalion chief. I'll do 3. So we're just advocating to add 1 position. So we would basically what we would do is between the 3 of us, we would share that duty coverage. Every 3rd week, we'd pick up that weekend coverage and go respond to calls. Lance ran some numbers. It's about 11 calls per month that we're called out to Connor or whoever has the duty. So fires, traffic accidents, any canyon rescues that we go on. So and that's basically where we're at with that compensation increase. Again, those are figures we ran them and ran them again and ran them again. Finances, Debbie's been tremendous in helping us out with that. So operational increases. So the volunteer programs, like I said, that wasn't necessarily planned for. There was $1,500 in stipends. So every time a volunteer shows up, they would get a small amount paid to them. So we tasked Rich, one of our captains that runs the volunteer programs, to go back to every volunteer reserve and part-time that's not assigned to shift anymore and ask them what what would you guys like to do? What would work for you? What are the hours that work? Because this was just supplementing what we have. What we have now covers all the calls that we run. We can manage and handle everything that we need to do with both stations open. So these folks are just supplemental to that. And we're basically losing that. We would pay them $100 a shift if they're volunteers. So that's a 12-hour shift. Or we pay them if they're already an hourly rate folk, we would pay them the hourly rate for 12 hours. So, and that position's been sitting there. It's open on our roster or electronic staffing. It's been filled 3 or 4 times. So for volunteer folks. So we also have tremendous costs with their equipment, safety gear, uniforms, and so on. So that cost will probably come down if we went to the next fiscal for safety gear, but we're trying to basically put all of their costs into one section. And I think it was at 120 is what Rich originally had, and it came down to that 63,977. And we can break down every single like a dollar if we want to do that tonight. So next item there, special operations, 32,000. That's stuff that we haven't, and that we haven't had training and stuff we haven't budgeted for in past practice. So that's all of our like school shooter equipment, trench rescue every time we go out to the canyon and make a rescue, ropes, different technical equipment that we need. Gabe Nelson runs that program, and that's the cost. A lot of that is it's about $12,000 to get 3 captains through the training to be a specialist. And there's different classes they need. They need hazardous materials, they need rope training, tactical medicine. And so we're tasking Gabe and 3 captains with that program. So, but again, we haven't budgeted for that in years past. So, and then 24,000 is basically our vehicle station operations. That's just going to happen based on opening 2 stations. Most of that's fuel. Like I said, we were 17,000, and we'll probably need more around 40,000 in fuel costs. So next slide. So the other capital ones that we have, I would like to put like station generators should be in a something we should do. So our ISO rating that we're doing Tuesday, we have a backup generator. It's portable one, but every station should have, especially with our dispatching, alerting, and all the electronics, it should have some type of backup generator that goes automatic. We did an estimate for that last year. Was there like a Generac? It was 20,000. We got rid of all of that. So we were planning for to staff the station. So same with the wildland programs, all that money is all pushed into salaries and wages for this year. And that's again for operating costs. We did the same. So that one those are optional ones, but they're definitely something that I think we need to do. Get those station generators going, and we're proposing them obviously for Ivans as well. Turnout lockers, again, that's just getting the guys' gears off the floor, their turnout gear. We do have the washers, but if they're off on shift and they don't, the washer's full, you should have that up hanging in a locker. So guys' gear, gals' gear is not touching. Right now, they just set it on the floor. There's some hooks as well, but I'd like to do that as well. They have some bunk organizing just for female, male items. They want to have that organized, and then fitness equipment. So the current fitness equipment that we have in the station, like the treadmill at one station is out of service. I just want to replace that equipment and make sure it's up to par. It's that simple. We're specking for commercial type equipment like a Precor treadmill is like $7,000, $6,500. So, and we would have somebody for maybe $500 a year come in and maintain that equipment. So that way it's the barbells are being replaced, all that stuff's getting replaced so it doesn't break on somebody when they're using it. So next slide. So those are all again, each of these guys ask them to pull the figures on what are your needs. We've vetted that out. We're for an 8-hour meeting on Friday, and then again, I brought what's left of it to the city managers, and that's what you guys basically on your numbers, what you see before you. So that's important. Ryan does a lot, and to run 120 grand budget is basically what he does when he's on shift, purchasing equipment, meeting with Dr. Foster, making sure we're AHA compliant, National Registry. They're doing a lot of moving parts. So that's where that battalion chief will have them probably pick up like vehicle and station maintenance and operations that Jason does. So that way somebody's here because he goes off for 4 days. He's not here during the week to get a vehicle in, get it fixed, those type of things. So that's pretty much it. We can go to the next item. So that's compensation breakdown. I don't know how much of the discussion we want to get into, but I to do whatever you folks want to do, each line item or questions on those particular figures. The capital outlay is that white ambulance that's up at Ivans. We want to wrap it to make it look like the other ambulance, expired firefighter PPE. That's going to have to be replaced. It's our hose, all of the basically 3-inch hose that the guys haven't been tested since 1996. It's all expired. So it all has to come off and get it replaced. While then radios, we want to buy radios at ones we have, like we went out. I went out maybe 3 times out to Mataqua area, and Enterprise actually gave us their radios to use. Jeff was kind enough because the ones we had didn't work. So things like that where we got to do this and we got to replace it. Even though we don't have a wildman team, we're responding. We got to have this technology. That's that. And then the Vortex pod is so Black Desert approached us on what our capabilities were for doing high angle rescue off their platforms, their crane operators. And again, that's where these things kind of go and develop organically. The rescue, like in the canyons, guys would drive out there. We have the UTVs. So they would go out there, but they wouldn't do any patient access if they had to rappel. So we used some of the equipment we had and bought some of it in the last fiscal. But those are just things where I'm prepared to do if somebody's down 20 feet, stand there and look at them, right? We want to use our equipment, go down there and provide care. And the search and rescue guys are great. That volunteer program's awesome. And so they're going to come in and support us, but that's what that equipment is. Again, there's things like trench rescue on our capital outlay. So if somebody's digging a trench, they're putting in pipe, and there's collapse like a cable, we're not prepared at all to do anything with that. So those are extra costs down the road. That's where that special operations section of everything that we're doing is kind of, we're trying to revamp it and get it going. Same thing with our hazmat costs. They're just big ticket items. So that's $5,000 for that pod. So, and again, it's mundane, but all like printing services, what does it cost for printers? So we task our printing leasing company to go through every single copy machine that we have, paper, all that, get us actual numbers so that we got a quote on that. So that's how we got that 4,089. It's basically, like I said, every dollar gets assigned a place. So legal services, I think we had like 750. But I'm down there. We allocated 10 hours at his rate, and that might go up as we continue to use that service. So it's that's it. To get into detail of it, like events for Swiss days, they had to they fed the guys. We don't have money for that, right? There other events that we go to, like the Ironman, will typically cover food costs. It goes on and on. So again, we just didn't have any. We had basically this year we have operating supplies, one lump of money, and then we just being that account where I want to get these guys managing their specific line item. Every dollar's there, and if you didn't plan for it, so that after they were tasked to go through each of what their needs were, then we're not going to buy it. It's not going to be a cost set we're going to spend because we didn't plan for it in the planning phase, which is now. So go to the next. So open house, like this year we didn't do an open house. Every October typically the fire department will do some type of open house. So what are those costs? There they are. Go to the next. So professional services, what is the cost to pay to Dr. Foster? We went through that like on Polaris. We actually went through there and looked and said, oh, it's more than this is more than what's on the current budget. I'll just leave it at that. It's certain things that weren't being accounted for, we're accounting for now. It's not, arbitrary numbers. They're just facts. And that's where it's, my job's easy because we run all the data and present it to you guys. You guys look at it and go, what do we want to do or don't want to do? And off we go. But like I said, every single line item or dollar item, there's no questions as far as from my stance on why the cost is what it is. Next one. So Ty's budget, contract services. So we had a lot of costs. Like we're supposed to hydro our SCBA cylinders. We're supposed to service that equipment. We're supposed to do certain tests for ISO and NFPA. We weren't doing that. So we went out to our vendor and said, hey, what does this cost to do? And that's how that cost gets generated, like contract services. Go next. And then, yeah, Mark's is pretty straightforward on you per cost. Go next one on that. Health and wellness, kind of a new category. Again, these are, to me, these line items are just policy items. What do we care about as a city? So health and wellness, I want to see it on the line item somewhere. Like mental health, those things, all those testing, drug testing, all the screening. Currently, full-time employee obviously get their health screening, we get our labs drawn, but I'd like to get part-time in there to have their labs drawn as well, so they can look at their health data if they are so inclined to do so. So, and then again, like the contract services, I want to have somebody come in and service all of our fitness equipment, as opposed to the guys or gals who are just using it and then it breaks. It's like, oh, we weren't servicing this equipment. Why not? So to me, those are just straightforward things that I want to do that we should be doing. Go next. So response planning, this is a big cost. What's dispatch costs? What are their fees? They're in here. All of the contracts with all the platforms we're using, all the software for alerting, that's in here. What's it cost to maintain? Like I said, radios, replace batteries, and then technology, like our cellular technology, that's all Verizon costs. So our rigs are all equipped with GPS and tablets, and some of that's improvement to where we weren't doing that 4 months ago, but we're doing it now. So that's a new cost a little bit. We had about 9,000 in cell phones, so that went up a little bit. Next, nothing too much increasing on this. This would, and they're nominal. The education costs are nominal. I mean, $3,900, but that was generated from items from their building official. It's saying, hey, how are we equipped to do a plan review on Black Desert equipment? Are people equipped to do that? Yes and no, but this is like an official class. We want to send Con and Mark. Mark's our inspector for Ivans. He does all the building inspections. We want to send them out to Vegas, do this class, have the certification. So go to next. Kind of went through this, our special ops program. And there's just the big, like I said, that road training will probably come down. That's a cost for education to send the guys out and get that specialized training. So, and we'll go next. About the stations, obviously the 32 costs on operating supplies we get reimbursed back from Ivans. So again, these numbers are right out from our databases, Polaris, and then getting bids and estimates on that. There's like a contract like Alsco carpets, services for the carpets, like around the ice machines, entryways that can be wet and slippery. We're doing that now. It's probably $1,100 a year just for that service. So they'll replace all the red rags that the folks would use. We actually have bins for those red rags to go in then for the oily tools and equipment that we're servicing, daily checks, all the small motors and equipment. That's all being included in this. So, and those are just costs we didn't have before. And that's, to me, it's like an OSHA compliant. You got to have them by an entryway door from the outside. You have it by the ice machine. The red rag's got to go in a approved bin. Those are the things that through all of this that generate these costs. Go to the next. So fuel, like I said, we're just pulling that from our database. So our fobs, all of our vehicles now are going, when we go fuel up, we put the mileage in of the vehicle, we fuel up, so we can actually track that costs. Every vehicle is going to have the mileage that they're running it annually. We'll know how much fuel it's using and then start to hopefully start projecting out these costs as opposed to maybe, just guessing on it. We're going to use the tools that we have to generate the costs. So operations and maintenance. Again, on that, the equipment that we do have is just like tires. It's very simple for me. And Jason runs this program, but look at them, all the vehicles and go, hey, what tires do we need to replace this year? We can do that. And so we did that. And that's how we generate. It's about $1,000 for, large heavy equipment. Tire. And so brakes, we've done that. What's the service, like on my vehicle, what's the service frequency? What's the cost to get that done? Oil changes for light vehicles is broken, everything is broken down. The only thing on like operations and maintenance, we have about $10,000 in flex on that. But there's always things like starters going out, switches, pump servicing of gauges and panels, things that we need welded that we have as a flex in there. So go to next. And the last one here. So big cost. It's up to you folks to, I can go in detail on the usefulness, but that's the cost right there for what we're planning for volunteer folks to come in. Again, this is all just supplemental. Has no bearing on what we currently do. It's a supplemental cost. But depends on what the community wants, and we're prepared and planned to make these projections and costs and accommodate and give folks the proper gear they need and all those things. So that's it. Any
Chief, questions, council?
I guess one of the questions I have is, if we're doing this ongoing, are we looking at a budget adjustment at the end of this fiscal year?
Yes, sir. Yeah.
Because we're actually increasing already. And so there is going to be budget adjustments, right?
Correct. Yes.
What would be nice, just not necessary, but I'd like to know what the costs were the last fiscal year compared to the current fiscal year, but.
Yeah, so this current fiscal year, as our budget's just under 2.4, we're still working to stay within that 2.4. There are some, we will have to make one just based on some of the things that Chief has explained. Fireman being out on disability, then having to bring, fill that position. Some of just the things that have happened on that with overtime, fuel, having the second station open. There's just been a few things that could not foresee happening, and say unintended consequences of having that second station open and running. So we will have to, but we are trying to stay as close to that 2.4 roughly that our budget was, but there will most likely be one. As you see, to go to what they are presenting, it's call it $500,000 more to next fiscal year, what has been presented. So 600,000.
600. Just for
clarification, it's good. Yeah, I think fuel,
when you say 2.4, are you talking about that is our share?
No, that's the total budget. So for us, you're taking 44% of that. So
are you able to go back on
1.1-ish?
Yeah, it's page 5.
Yeah.
That shows the budget shortfall, which shows our share. I think it's 5. Go right there.
That's not for this current fiscal year. That would be.
Well, yeah, but that's what we're proposing moving forward. Those are the numbers we need knowing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we would roughly need to come find another $270,000 out of.
Now, all of that's not going to be there's a 6% cost of living in there. Is that right, chief? Is that
Yeah,
what it
6.5.
0.5?
6.5, 8% healthcare. And then that obviously tabulates everything else, retirement and so on. Yeah, compounding.
Yeah, it's,
I think I just to throw it out there for awareness is just the way we're staffing, I think is important for you guys to know and understand. It's completely different than what you're doing in the county. So what they'll do is basically they have somebody out, let's say Washington or St. George. They'll bring in a firefighter that is certified or a firefighter to work as a captain. So they'll have two firefighters on an engine company. One of them certified and they'll respond that way. So if we can, that's the same thing we're doing. Those reserve folks can come in, but it's probably 2% of the time that we're able to actually utilize them because they don't necessarily have the skills or the certifications to fill that spot. So like if Captain Hansen goes off, you don't just fill it with an entry level firefighter one with a basic EMT. Fill that with somebody that's certified. And like Rachel Peterson, she's out on healthcare, but she's our only reserve that's really equipped to do the company officer level. Rich Preston is as well. But they have their jobs. And so that's where our staff that we have fills those seats. And that's what we've been doing since August. That's where that cost is. And again, the systems out there, they do it. I'd rather spend that money, that 100 in overtime to get a qualified person and put them in the seat, put on the engine, and have to not worry about the moving parts. And that's how this whole thing started when I showed up. It was like, hey, I need to get folks here to get that shift filled. So now it's 100%. We fill it every single day, and there's a cost to it. Obviously, Gabe's injury time, we didn't plan for that. That was like 3 months. Generated probably 80% of that cost that we didn't plan for. But that's something to think about. Like one of the options is, oh, we're not going to do any overtime. We'll just shut the station down. But again, I wouldn't advocate. It doesn't make sense at all for me to do that because if somebody's not breathing up in Canton, it's like, well, we want the station over. I would rather cut another line item in here out and procure that cost to staff the station. That's the bottom line. Special operations is great. We should be doing that. I want to be prepared for our construction workers and our visitors and stuff that are going out in the canyons. But that's the main thing is to keep that station going. So yes, I would say, and you look at all these programs he talks about cutting, you go to the volunteer program one, which was a very big, there were some feelings when we met with Ivans then, but as you hear from Chief, the number of shifts that are being filled, to me, I have a hard time saying, let's put $64,000 into this to fit them out with PPE uniforms. To sense that meeting in August to fill 3 or 4 shifts, to me is not being responsible fiscally to say, let's spend that money when we could spend in some other things to have 3 or 4 shifts filled or that time. I think we can do better than that, but that's.
So is there no additional opportunities to fill the shifts and that's why there's only 2 or 3? Or is it because the volunteers are choosing not to fill shifts that are available?
Yeah, I couldn't speak for them, but the shifts is open on our electronic staffing module and it's been open since August or the first fiscal. And it's been filled, 4 or 5 times, a handful of times. So why, I don't know, but.
The only question I have on the volunteer, and as you presented, it seemed like that was probably if there was one you were going to cut, that's probably the one you would want to cut. But is there a benefit? Are we able to hire any full time from the volunteers? Does it help with any recruiting? Does it provide opportunities for someone to kind of get come in and I say this, I'll speak from the private sector. We actually are considering in our mechanical company to open up part-time shifts, which we've never done because some of these younger people that are coming to the field to work, 40 hours is a lot of work for them. And so we're saying, well, we'll give you 28 and you can give it a shot. And as crazy as it sounds, I've never thought in a million years I'd have to offer that, but we are. And, and does the volunteer give opportunities of that, or are you not seeing that?
We're not seeing the participation in filling those shifts. I don't necessarily know that. There are folks that are highly dedicated. This is important. I value this. especially like the fire explorers. And this is where I started out of high school and got to go to LA City because of that. I had a lot of information, free training and all that good stuff right at 19 years old. So getting into medical school, I had to get all those hours for EMT. I got that for free. So there's a profile to me in my head, like when I think of reserves, volunteers, apprentices, whatever we want to call them. There's an age range in their demographics that are looking to jump into this and make it a career. So that's really that's just facts on it. You can, now this here is intended to provide an opportunity above and beyond because it's accommodating their hours and they want to work. I think it's a 12-hour shift. It's an extra spot basically at the 32s. It's existed up there. We're just putting a dollar figure to it to figure out how we're going to pay people that don't want to get paid, people that are already existing part-times they're medics, they're valuable, but they're, we have a participant that's going to medical school there, and that's what he needs to be doing. But this provides opportunity for him to come in and, hey, we'll pay you that 12-hour shift. And we've accommodated, we just calculated all that. Basically, it's 20 shifts out of the 31 days that we're budgeting for. So we'll have 20 opportunities a month that a person could come down. So,
But you're saying you only have 2 or 3 people taking advantage of that, right?
correct. Yes. And we do looking for moving to full-time. It's been coming from our part-time employees, not through the volunteers. Yeah. But I think the Explorer program that Chief talked about, I think is one we haven't done, but I think it would be a good one to trying to get youth involved and might be interested in going into the fire service to say, hey, let's get them started and get a little leg up as they, get out of high school. So I think that is a positive part of this program. Yeah.
So moving forward, again, we knew we were going to see these costs, staffing the station. We knew this was coming. Budget 24, 25. We're going to, at that point, we're going to see a big jump this year. Does that continue? Does it kind of level up with
my goal, like I said, is to assign this way. I should have bring these back, but I bought them because it's a question about this. I can open this up and give you the printing costs for the contract, right? And that's the goal, is to capture all this and really spend with these guys hours. I mean, they've had months we have a thing they can go into a spreadsheet and start building this stuff. It takes 3 months to build this and 10 hours of work to talk about it and kind of give and take on things. But that's what I'm saying. We're kind of resetting a budget for these 2 stations and what we're actually doing, what we're doing as a fire service, as a department's it's different. And we're resetting that. And so to answer your question, I think that like fuel could increase. There could be a transmission that went out on a truck, maybe those type of costs, but I think it's nominal as far as what I'm expecting for numbers, a percent, or not sure we physically say consciously we're going to increase wages, then sure. That was my goal on this, is to be extremely granular and ticky-tacky with every single line item up there. And the bolts, your guys' policies, that's why it's in here, because working between the 2 cities want different things maybe, and I wanted to put it in there. So I think where you'd see bigger increases going to the future, 24, 25 and on, would be, do we increase personnel? And then it would be capital equipment. When do we need another ambulance? When do we need another engine? Talk about, the ladder truck. Those are the times when I think you're going to see those big more one-time purchases, except for personnel. Yeah, it's a conscious thing. So like turnouts, these crazy spreadsheets, we have everybody's gear, every piece of equipment kind of cataloged, and so we'll know when it expires. So next budget, you all know exactly how many helmets we need, how many jackets, and how many boots. And then that might go a little bit, but the goal is to kind of keep it, I think we're going to be in control of it. So,
but in the budget, would we not be better off to figure out what those capital costs are going to be and save for them? So you're not, you're not getting one lump sum of a $800,000 engine or $1 million engine or whatever.
When it comes to an engine, though, or any one of those large ones, it's going to end up being as a bond. I mean, most likely, you go up for a $1.5 million apparatus or whatnot. Same goes to a station if we decide to build a station, but I mean, we try to put money away every year. We try to put money back into a fund balance. We try to put money back into capital projects. Those type of things. We want to continue to do that just so there is some funds there to do things. You know, capital projects can use, you know, for wages and ongoing, but there are some things that way that we have put aside some for project, but that's like capital projects isn't, you know, specific to fire. It's in any bit of the general fund of projects that could go. It could, you know, Vineyard Drive, splash pad, whatever it is that we're doing. So
Can I bring up this capital sheet to him just so I could see it?
sure.
Yeah, okay. Oh. Yeah. That's in. So that includes like saving for equipment. Hey, we know it's gonna be $90,000. Like we want to do these Plimo vents that sucks all the bad exhausts out. Well, we have that on there and they're like, it's $40,000 a station. So I'm projecting everything I can think of out to 2030 that we would want to do for compliance and equipment. And then just breaking down the costs, you know. But that's that. So again, I'm just trying to be thoughtful of it and make sure we just get every single cost tabulated. So no surprises for going forward.
You presented to Ivan City yet?
No, I sent this presentation over and then all the work that's kind of, I wanted to look into it to Cade and Dale. And then we did a city manager day for half the day where I kind of went through all that stuff on a whiteboard and said, what do you give and take? Where do you want to adjust a little bit here and there? And that's how we got to where we're at in front of you guys. So with Dale and both Brock. So yeah.
Okay.
I don't know if it's fair to compare, but I'm going to ask the question. I know they did an increase, the COLA adjustment increase for police. Was it 6.5% or was it 6? Oh, it was $6 an hour. Okay. Okay.
Questions for Chief Parker?
I guess my question is for Brock or for Debbie, who's not here, but I mean, does this increase scare you from a budget perspective or is this manageable?
270,000 scares me. I'll be honest. I mean, it's what the mayor said when they talked about sales tax here and everything, and everybody over there wants a piece of it. That's the problem. And that's the hard part of saying next year, next fiscal year, are we going to, revenue is going to increase by $270,000. I don't think so. I mean, that's the hard part. Plus, you think of just everything else that potentially could go up this. You see 270 on that, but that 8% that we're projecting on insurance would hit everybody. And what does retirement? And so, yeah, there's a lot of nervousness to say that's 270, and that's just the fire side. And when we get Bob up here to talk about police and what's that side, that number is probably total between the two. I'm ballparking 500,000 plus. So then that's what you're talking about that we would have to find within the general fund to take care of both departments. And yeah, it's scary. And that's just one or two departments of the general fund.
And this is basically why St. George had to cut a bunch of money out of their parks department. Because they're kind of going through all this.
Well, and for them, and you can talk to people within their administration. And it scares to try to go to this next fiscal year and fund the continuation of that has them to what and how. I mean, I think they're in a pickle, really, when you talk to them, it's like nearly shutting down departments to try to continue to fund their public safety. It's scary. So, and that's where, like for them, that's why they went to try to go through truth and taxation, because it's about the only way to continue to stay up to date and with wages and everything that's going on. It's hard without saying something has to give.
Thank you.
Maybe the state could share a portion of their, $3 billion surplus to the cities. Just saying.
Yeah, I'm sure they're saying.
Stick your hand out, they'll fill it with quarters.
Yeah, no, it's,
But I will say, Chief, I really appreciate the level of detail and
I do too.
I can feel confident in this for sure.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
all right.
Chief,
A lot of things.
you got handcuffs on your belt? I got a button up here. I don't know if it works anymore though.
It does. We tested it out a couple weeks ago. There's still.
Door opens.
Mhm. Yeah, right into the museum.
Well, good evening, council. It's nice to be here. A couple of things. I'm a little bit of an optimist on all this, to be honest with you. So I have 26 line items. I could provide the detail to you if you want to, but as you know, that every year we're audited, we have to count for every dollar. So I won't provide that for you tonight unless you wanted it. So I'm just going to give you some generalities. Of those 26 line items, I only really control 8. It's things like training, travel, some equipment purchases that we've kind of go back and forth over every year. So a couple of things I'm a little worried about, but I think that I did this year. I approached both Brock and Dell and said, listen, all these agencies are given this significant raise to their sworn officers, and we need to do the same because we're already a couple of dollars behind. We get $8 or $9 an hour behind St. George and these other places. Folks are going to go. And we've invested lots of money in some real quality people. And I mean, in all sincerity. And I also, when I made the play for that raise, I went to my own budget and said, I will give up a position and I would give up a vehicle. And Brock said something interesting. You can give up stuff, but sooner or later, you're going to have to make up for it. And yeah, we can over some time, but I felt it was that important. And so we were able to do that, and we were successful with that. So my budget last year was $3,079,000, and I've requested, and I'll explain it to you, about $3,600,000, and 400,000 of that's in personnel. I'm asking for two extra people in one vehicle. That's almost $400,000 of it. It's a request. I understand the fire's got demands and we're staffed pretty well. What I was looking at mainly was I wanted to get more involved. I needed another detective. And when we have people out, we've had 3 people down with injuries for almost 3 months now. And that puts a big demand on us where we only have maybe, we've had to adjust schedules. There's times a few hours a night we've had only one person on because we just don't have the people. Our calls are going up, and I kind of justify personnel on calls for service and quality, not necessarily the national standard, but we are probably only 3/4 of the national standard for officers per population, bunch of gobbledygook. But we are looking at our calls and they go up about 10-15% a year. That's where we're at. So in order to keep the level of service up, we either have to change what we respond to or change expectations. But in my budget, on most of my line items, I just included the inflation rate to them. I don't know what the fuel's going to do. I'm like the chief, I'm kind of at the whim of everything like that. And as our fleet gets old, like right now, I've pulled off 2 repairs on 2 vehicles that need 2 transmissions. That's $15,000. But I figure, well, if I can wait till January or February and then look at our monies then, we'll be fine on that. So I'm feeling pretty good about that. But there's 2 things that are coming my way and the chief's way. And there's this new radio system that the state's demanding that we go to within the next couple of years. We've done a couple of really good things. We've been buying really quality radios that we'll be able to transfer. But what does that mean for us? Well, we don't have any radios in our cars. We made a decision a number of years ago that would save us just an incredible amount of money and use walkies. And that's worked really well until this new system comes on board, and then it's not going to work. The officer will have limited coverage with his walkies. So we're having to put radios in our cars. That's probably in the neighborhood, depending on the cost, about $3,000 to $4,500 a radio in our cars, and we have 18, 20 vehicles, and you start adding that cost up. But what we've been able to do is we've been front end loaded on that. What that means is we've got in on the beginning, we submitted all of our numbers, all of our demands, and it looks like we're going to be able to get the radios for around $800 a piece, kind of a test area. So we feel very, very good about that. That can be covered out of our normal budget because we buy new radios. I try to buy 2 radios a year, 2 vehicles a year. And because we've been able to do that, we're finding ourselves in a pretty good position. There's another thing that's coming my way that I don't have any control over, and that's the camera system. So Axum is really the sole source. And what that means is our cameras and our tasers are all connected. And then we have to download all that information. So it's going to go to the cloud. Our county attorney wants it. So they don't have to come through us. It's good for evidentiary purposes. I have no control of that. And next year it's about $35,000 just to start the program. And it's a 5-year thing. So what that basically means, an officer pulls a weapon, they come out with a taser, the camera comes on automatically. It's downloaded to the cloud, the county attorney can get to it. And then another thing we can do, which is really nice, is that we have real lifetime. I can get to my computer, call it up, and I can see what the officer sees. So we have a hostage situation, or oh, heaven forbid, some more serious, we can actually have real time on that. And it has GIS systems on it and a number of things I want to bore you with, but that's being thrust on us. We don't have a choice. So we're going to, we were one of the first to get cameras for everybody, for every officer. Now that everybody's there, now it's kind of demanded. And if we want to have the program, that's just a cost we're going to start having to deal with. It's about $30,000 a year, $35,000 a year. I wish I could turn it down and say no, but I don't have a choice with that. I've increased our budget for vehicles. I would like to get 3 this year, but we'd be okay with 2. I did give up 1 this year to give the officers the raises. So other than that, our budget is pretty much the same. Personnel, equipment coming our way, some increases with our dispatch costs, with the chief has also. We just get the bill. We have to pay it. My normal, I've asked for an extra $10,000 just simply to cover things like radars. We've been very successful in getting those on grants. Those are dicey. You never know if you're going to get them the following year or not. So the radars, the toxilizers, things like this are all just part of doing business. So I just go with the cost on those. So when you look at the budget and you see that increase, and that's really in personnel, I'm just requesting it. I would love to have it. You're going to have to hire them sooner or later. But for me, I would rather have the car and all these other costs that are increasing over the extra position for next year. And I figured what I would do is when I come back before you and I've been giving some numbers back, some feedback, I'll adjust and prioritize what our needs are. But most of it, there's no fat there. It's all lean muscle. There's nothing there that I can't give you why we're doing it and giving you in all the detail, including all of our training needs, our training costs. Everything is there outlined for you. And it's pretty much what it cost me. There's no fluff there by any means. I wouldn't do that, but I would like to, propose that we at least get the 2 vehicles and all those other costs. And if we can get the personnel, I'd love to have it, just like the fire chief. If not, I understand. I understand it. As long as you understand that, I'll come to you and say, well, this is what we're doing. I'll go without the detective and a few other things. So anyway, that's my presentation.
On the cameras, the American Bar Association hasn't offered to contribute.
Oh, no, and that's the problem. I got to talk to Matt about that. But it's really the county attorney and has a lot. We're going to have to do it anyway because we don't have the technology to stir this stuff like we've just been putting a Band-Aid on it. We're going to have to go to the cloud to stay professional, and it's part of our accreditation. So,
Questions, council? Thanks, Chief. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Okay. 384, Administrative Code Enforcement Ordinance discussion. Most exciting for last.
Good evening. Yes, the intent of this discussion item is to propose an additional section to the Santa Clara City Code to provide direction for code enforcement. The proposal will provide a course through the city ordinance to administrate code enforcement actions when required. With this, all employees authorized to enforce the city code will have an established protocol ensuring that the consistent clear direction to compliance is available. This tool will be implemented when working with residents, establishing a common path towards code compliance. This was derived probably about 6 months ago. I was dealing with a resident who had a complaint about a neighbor's accessory structure, and it was in violation of our code. So I came back and I kind of rattled my saber and wrote them a courtesy letter with a strict compliance date. They ignored it. And so I went to Matt and I'm like, okay, what other tools do I have? And Matt says, I don't know that we have much more. So I felt like Barney Fife. I grabbed my single shot out and shot it and didn't hit anything. So I said,
These young guys may need an explanation.
yeah, the snappers. Sorry, it's the NyQuil. The NyQuil's talking. So I went back to the drawing board and I said, Matt, with our neighbors that we share code enforcement with, they have a policy in place. Would you, or do you think we should pursue adopting something like it? So it goes on, if you'll scroll down, covers the general provisions.
Can I comment on that, Cody?
Sure.
I just wanted to add that, you know, the teeth of our code enforcement was really the criminal court. You know, we could refer them to the criminal court for violating a zoning ordinance. And that felt like a big jump to us. And so Cody and I were talking and Cody explained to me this system, which is what Ivans has been using for code enforcement. And I think it's pretty appealing to give Cody and our other code enforcement officials options to enforce zoning violations, other, non criminal issues without having to refer them into the criminal system. So anyway, thanks, Cody.
Yeah, so this was essentially the mayor and a council would appoint an administrative judge to hear the administrative action. Right now, previously, I believe it was a reserve officer or part-time officer would go out and write citations carrying a Class B misdemeanor. And so this lightens that load. It's not my objective to define or write citations. I want compliance, but I need the tools in place to gain compliance. It's when they see that the path, I'll show it later, but you start seeing a fee schedule that graduates, and they can see that the first one's a warning, and then it graduates up and gets substantial. So, and then this also offers me a notice. So I start with a courtesy note, like I stated earlier, and then it moves on to a notice of violation, and with the ability to write administrative citations. So the general provisions, there's a lot of legal language. I don't know if you've reviewed it. I'm sure Matt is enthralled by this. But it's basically just puts the ordinance in place. Under the declaration, code enforcement is vital to the protection of the public health and safety. That's kind of boilerplate language for ordinances. We want the best for our people. I'm going through the scope and into definitions. Definitions is 2.5 pages. Service requirements. It gives us direction on how to, I'm down about 3 pages. It gives us direction on how we can serve the notice of violations. And then the main part of this ordinance for me is under the general authority of offenses. It states whether the ACE administrator or any other enforcement official finds that a violation of the city code or applicable state code has occurred or continues to exist, the appropriate administrative enforcement procedure may be used and outlined in this title. The ACE administrator or the code enforcement official has the authority and the power necessary to gain compliance with the provisions of the city code and applicable state codes. These powers include the power to issue notices of violation and administrative citations, inspect public and private property, abate public and private property, and use whatever judicial and administrative remedies are available under the city code or applicable state codes. So I guess tonight is a discussion. I'm happy to field any questions you may have and see if you would like to entertain moving forward with this.
Council?
Having been one of the council members that has received these complaints and then asking for code enforcement, I like that there's this definition to it. I like it a lot.
Any other strong feelings, council?
I think it's good to have a backbone on that because it is, I don't know how often, be interested to know how many calls you get a week on code enforcement.
Yeah, where we share it with SCI now, I'm not sure what they get, but yeah, it can be substantial. It was I know in Ivans it was at least 3/4 time job. Depends on how retired your residents are.
We do have a few specific residents in the city who do a pretty good job of patrolling their neighborhoods and keeping them busy.
Don't we call them HOA presidents?
Yeah. Don't get me started.
There's always a self-appointed one in every neighborhood.
I guess one of the questions for Matt is, as far as an administrative judge, do we have such?
We would have to appoint someone. You would have to appoint someone, but Ivans has an administrative law judge that handles theirs. I don't know if they would be willing or interested in doing ours as well. I think there would be some advantage to that.
What kind of qualifications?
Really whatever qualifications we wanted to set, it could be an attorney, but it wouldn't have to be.
It could be somebody who just understands our code and
Yep.
what it is.
Yep.
Okay.
And it really means is it who is it in Ivans?
It was Darren Barney when I was there.
Okay. But we don't know if it's still Darren.
No, I'm not sure.
I don't know if any of you know Darren Barney, he's an attorney in St. George and actually former mayor of Ivans as well. So.
Oh, sorry. When you can see the screen now, it shows this would be something that would emulate the administrative citation. So you'd start with a warning, and then they can see what their next offense is, what it brings if they don't gain compliance. So it's a very effective tool with my experience. And I'm happy to look further into it and fine tune this working with Matt if you'd like me to put some more time there.
Cody, just one question to you. This is usually after you've spoken to them that they receive the citation.
Oh, absolutely.
They don't get it blindly written and handed to them, but they know that it's coming.
No, I like to start out, well, I don't like to knock doors because it gets confrontational unless you have safety in numbers. So a phone call is always wise, or a courtesy notice. With my courtesy notice, I give them compliance dates. I want to see progress. And then from that, I would go to notice of violation. I'll have, 2.5 to 3 week windows. So it gives them plenty of time to comply and very workable, right? We want to see progress. We want compliance. We don't want the fines. So.
Thanks.
Is there anything in there if somebody does not in the first, second, or third offense does not pay? Is that when it heads? Was there a continue per day fine? Or is that just a matter of going before the judge?
Well, this is a separate tool. So if you scroll to there's a notice of violation where they can appeal for a hearing and go before the administrative law judge. So there's two separate tools. So just to serve somebody, I didn't use the administrative citation much, but more like on a contractor level. Like, hey, I've asked you time and time again, here's a warning and here's the next action. Where if I'm dealing with residents, I found that the more effective tool for me was the notice of violation. I could start with a courtesy notice. The notice of violation goes out. If they don't comply with that, then they are in default of the hearing. So it automatically starts the fees and fines, which were $25 a day from the date of the violation. So it's a different fee schedule. There are two different tools.
Okay.
Sorry, I probably should have been more clear on that.
The other thing I'd maybe just add is this is not meant to replace our ability to actually have the city prosecutor, pursue charges against someone. This would be an additional tool and one that would be used in most cases before that as kind of an interim, something a little more flexible, something that's not such a big hammer, when it's not needed. So
I think it's good.
but we wouldn't remove the, potential criminal penalties from our ordinances.
And that's actually stated in the ordinance under the existing law continued, so. Any other questions?
Can you print me like 10 of these? I've got some numbers. I just wanted.
I think you'd do better with those.
In fact, give them to every association president.
Yeah. With my shop local sticker, make sure they're shopping local.
And if you ever need any personal space, put one of these back on. Jim won't even sit close to me. Dustin, he's led to the other side of the room this morning, so I had a light sniffle, but personal space.
Thank you, Cody. Staff reports, Ryan.
Good evening. Well, we had this past Saturday, we had another group of students. We had 30 students come out for 2.5 hours. Continue working on cleaning up planters around Goobler. Great turnout. Had a lot of hard workers. We had several who were interested if we were hiring, looking for a job. So contrary to what popular belief is about this new generation, there are about 5% that actually do want to work. So anyway, we've been busy with burials. We've had several in the last 2 or 3 weeks. The Bridge Park picnic tables are finally in place. Been waiting for some key parts that weren't shipped with the tables. Finally got them last week. So as of today, there's 3 tables over there and 3 garbage cans. So they're ready for use. Last but not least, we promoted Dane Call to Parks Foreman and Ryan Hafen to the supervisor. So they're both rip roaring and ready to go. That's all I've got. Have any questions for me?
Thank you for your help last night.
You're welcome.
It was tremendous.
It was awesome. Thank you.
All of you for your help last night. Everybody had a part in that. It was nice.
Was it Lena that spiked the hot chocolate?
I'm not saying anything.
I did have one resident ask me if maybe next time before we put rocks in Goobler Park to take out some grass, we just put horseshoe pits there instead. Or maybe we just find a spot for horseshoe pits in Goobler Park. I've had other residents ask me about that in the past as well. So that'd be something maybe for the next year's budget or something to consider.
Okay.
I like horseshoes.
Used to have Eagle Scout projects to
Yeah.
do stuff like that.
Used to. I've been waiting for an Eagle Scout. He's already finished the entry into the cemetery for 8 months now. He's
There you go.
still waiting.
I don't think the volleyball.
Thank you, Ryan. Dustin?
Whitaker Construction is gonna wrap up Santa Clara Drive tomorrow. They did the final tie-in today. We should have it patched and opened up hopefully end of this week. They did a perfect job. I had no complaints. There was the gas line incident, but that was not their fault. It's an unmarked line. They're gonna be starting up on the next job, which is Truman Drive. Actually, they're gonna go saw cut tomorrow and start right up there after this one. So been really nice to get those 2 done. I'm getting ready to pull well number 6 for some maintenance, put some new bowls in, make sure everything checks out. And so hopefully it's ready to go for another run season. I've been working with a company called Willow Stick Technology that did a well study for Cedar City. They've come down here and taken a look at the area and given us some proposals. I've met with them a couple of times, so I'm working on that and, hopefully get some good information on them where we can drill the next well. I met with the MPO today. I put in for a couple of projects for $2.2 million that were up for grabs for 2027. I put in for some work on the Western Corridor out here. And I also put in for one jointly with Ivans on Hamlin Parkway to start the EA and 50% design. And we did get $1 million for that awarded to us, available in 2027. That was exciting. The crew has got started out crack sealing with the new crack sealer that we purchased. Utopia is going really, really strong. They're over 160,000 feet of conduit. They're well into the second footprint. They're hoping to have their interconnect done any day and still saying they're going to have service by December, sometime in December. We'll see how that goes. We already talked about Vineyards 11 started this week. The BMX parking lots have been sent out for advertised. We'll be doing a bid opening on those on January 5th. Me and Ryan are gonna go back to the county and ask for some more money and hopefully be able to get those 2 projects done. We had some traffic signals done that was also paid for by MPO. They put in new controllers and cameras at each location so we can actually go on live time if somebody reports a problem and not have to go stand down there and look at it. And it's been really nice. Monty Thurber with St. George City helps me out with that, watching those, and so does UDOT. They can actually make those changes remotely and nobody even has to go to the site now. So it was quite a nice upgrade that they paid for. And that's all I have. Any questions for me?
You guys have done a great job. Keep going.
Thank you.
Anything else, Chief?
That's it. I think me and Lance may move down here to the city. So Con will stay up there in Ivans. I think that will happen next week or so. So he'll kind of be full time. We'll have a little window and some approachability up there or whatever for residents and stuff. So
When you say up there, you're talking Rachel?
no, here at City Hall.
So you're moving here?
Where Brad's, yeah, put them in where the parks. Yeah. And then maybe we'll have the place for police as well, a desk there for them. They need to do reports and such. So that'll be good. The gas leak went, whoever was involved with that was I think it was like a 6-inch main or something. You couldn't even, it was hard to talk to, was it too? Yeah, it was impressive, but everybody did a good job on that. But just thanks for the continued support. And if the guys are listening, all that work for the budget and stuff is all them and just hours. And I'm so thankful to have all of them working together on that. So good team. Thanks.
Thank you. Cody, anything?
I'm good, though. I'm good, but Fred went and had a procedure done, so we're running lean. Thank goodness lean is holding us together. Our numbers are staying consistent so far, but Desert Village has applied for their final group of permits, so our numbers should start to dwindle. Hopefully we get Solace or another subdivision online. So anyway, doing good. Thank you.
Thank you. Jim?
Well, battle. There you go. She had COVID twice, and the one time she had it, I don't know, she was down for 3+ weeks at Christmas time. So, plenty going. One of the big things is the moderate income housing report. The state of Utah sent those non-compliance issues letters out to most everyone. We got word back that only 11 cities passed, and 66 or either 68 did not, that were required to do so. Many of those cities even hired consultants to do the report for them. And so in the last 2 weeks, there's been a couple of workshops. There was a workshop with a city managers group last week that I attended. The Bountiful city manager wasn't happy at all, and I think he put that together. He was a little bit concerned with the state requirements. And then just yesterday, the state of Utah, Alyssa Gamble, that used to work with 5 County, and her boss, Christina Oliver, who runs that division with the state of Utah, had another workshop working with us and helping communities and answering their questions. I think I'm pretty close to making the modifications and anticipate submitting that next week. The other thing they're asking for is, as you know, in 2019, they call it the affordable housing element. Now they're referring to the moderate income housing element. Everything has to be per state code, per language changes effective June 1st of 2022. So we're making those modifications. I think I was pretty close, but we'll get it through this next time. I don't feel too bad when I hear that more than 60 communities were told to redo that report. So we're working on that. We do have a planning commission meeting next week. Tomorrow night's the city staff Christmas party. So our planning commission meeting was put on next Thursday night instead of tomorrow night. We do have a few items, kind of exciting. Coyote Landing at Desert's Edge, phase 1, which is Robert Smith is trying to move forward with phase 1 of the first 24 townhome units there and the amenity site and some of the public roads. Phase 2 are the first 2 apartment buildings, which are 60 units. Each one of them is 30 buildings, 30 units in each building. We know he has tax credits to do those 60 units. So I haven't heard from him yet, but I anticipate sometime in 23 that he'll be taking down that first phase. We do have a plat amendment for a rather large home in the hills at Santa Clara phase 3. The applicants have bought 3 lots, 303, 304, and 305, combining into one large lot so they can build a large home on that property. So that does require a public meeting. That property has been noticed. That'll go to the planning commission next week and come to you after that in January. We do also have a general plan amendment for a property known as Tuacahn Wash off of Pioneer Parkway. We posted that on Monday to meet the 10-day notice. That's a piece of property that's currently in the open space designation of the general plan. The person that has it under contract is asking for medium density residential. We have concerns because he's not been willing to provide a soils report. We're not sure if the land justifies more than a low density residential. There's a reason it's an open space. The current zoning is R110. Brock may know the property by name. I just know it's under 8 acres, just under 8 acres. It's off of Pioneer Parkway, and also a number of homes abut it. Their backyards abut the property off of Red Mountain. So we sent notices out, approximately 31 notices went out. So we anticipate a group of people coming out to that meeting on the 15th. Some of them could be similar folks that came out in Silverado to those meetings. So we anticipate that. We have our new banner out. That's what I was referring to. So our new banner is out. We have the real estate sign with the narrative next to it, which we've always provided, which state code wants. And then I'll put the QR code up next to the banner sign tomorrow afternoon when the packet goes out. And then we link it to the website. So that goes up 1 week before the meeting. So all the things that we've talked about, we're achieving that now, or we're attempting to, doing our best. So that's where we're at. That's all I can think of for now, but that's enough. Thanks.
What did the hillside say about the 3 lots in the hills?
They were good with it, subject to multiple conditions. There's 5 conditions, one of which is an updated geotech. Some more work on a 3rd retaining wall. You know, they're kind of pushing out that buildable area because it's not pristine anymore. There was some grading work done years ago on that. These are lots that back onto the road below is Clary Hills, correct? And they kind of sit out on that edge and they're pushing it. It's a large rambler. It's a rambler style home, single level, but it does have a basement. It's designed to go across 3 lots. It's a big home. The footprint minus the garage is somewhere in the 10,000 square foot range. 3 properties are over 2 acres in size. So it's a good size home. So you'll see that they were okay with it based on 5 conditions, one of which is an updated geotech and some other engineering reports. That's in the report. Logan Blake, who's on our planning commission, is a member of the Hillside board, so he'll explain it to the planning commission. We'll also have Jason Smith and others here the night it comes to council to explain it to you. We have some renderings so you can see the home. doesn't exceed the height requirement. There's just, packs a punch, basketball court, bowling alley, all that type of stuff. So, a nice home.
Okay, questions for Jim, council? Thanks, Jim. Rob?
All right, just give a little bit with Gary's not here this evening for this, but we'll be coming back in January to discuss with council the solar contract and some updates to that, along with the solar reliability charge. Other than that, with power, it's just on issues of power and costs that are concerning, as Gary's discussed. Normally our power cost this time of year for a megawatt could be in the $40 to $60 a megawatt, and we're in the hundreds of dollars per megawatt. It's just cost of power is up there. UAMPS is trying to find additional contracts for power that we can get. They're working for one. We are looking for about 800 kilowatts for the month of January. UAMPS is looking for that. There's still some ongoing problems down in Farmington, New Mexico with the plant there, some litigation potential that's happening. So where we thought there was going to be some transition there, another company is going to come in and take it over and refurbish it like it's happening. Sounds like there's some problems with that. So, and there was another solar project up in Cedar that they're looking at as well. So there's some things just trying to find some power. But the cost, even the one for 800 kilowatts, it's looking at up to, if it exceeds 100 and I want to say 25 or 130 bucks, then they won't do it. But that's where you're looking in just to get that 800 kilowatts that we need. So ongoing issues there. But it's, like I say, filling it across the board as we talked to city managers yesterday, Caden from Hurricane and issues that they're dealing with with power. So we have had no update on finding our justice court judge replacement. Haven't heard back from the administrative office of the courts with the panel. We sent names off to them a month plus ago, and they're just behind. And so the judge says that he did submit a letter of request to be and he termed it a senior judge, which would allow him just to fill in until that happens. So hopefully we'll have something here soon. If the name submitted was myself and Lisa, our head court clerk, to sit on that committee, along with whoever else the administrative office of the courts choose to. And then we work through a name and bring it to you guys for an approval. We held interviews looking for replacement of Ditzy Whiteheads as she's going to retire. We did interviews on Monday. The Monday, Chris? Days are going by. Monday. We did, so we have another one tomorrow. And so we'll be making a decision on a hire for that to hopefully have them start in January. She'll give them a few months, 4 months with Ditzy to learn that position, help learn from her. So the audit is pretty much complete. They will be coming, Hinberg will be coming in January 4th to work meeting to do their audit presentation. So we'll have that website. It's a wonderful thing. Hopefully that will be good and running next week. Hopefully. We have contracted with Granicus to help with our meeting minutes. That will help them be easier for residents to find and search through. So that is mostly, I think, happening. They're doing they don't come do the install. We do the install. They just walk us through it. So I believe that's happening tomorrow. So we'll be having Granicus come and they're helping us with that. So a couple of things helping, which will help with streaming and everything. So that will be an improvement. And then GenCom will come hopefully in February, March to do the rest of the upgrades in here. So, and that Christmas party tomorrow.
What time?
6 o'clock.
I'm thinking I'll see it.
So it's somewhere between 5:30 and 6.
And bingo.
I think it's 6 o'clock. Sorry. 6 o'clock, come ready to play, have some fun. Raffle, we got some good raffle prize items, some big ticket items. So yeah, come have some fun. Need some good food.
Questions for Brock?
Just does anyone want an update on the Glockenspiel?
Is it fixed?
Do you all know what's going on with it? Do you care?
Computer glitch is what I heard. I manually opened it yesterday.
Yeah, it's not a computer glitch.
Relay? The relay?
So I spent about 2 hours here the other day looking at everything, and we confirmed it wasn't the computer. It's something in that relay box. And then, so we had an electrician come last Friday from Southland. The guy at Parker that did it before isn't with the company anymore, but I guess they handpicked one of the electricians that could figure out what Parker had done. His name was Austin. I was really impressed with everything he did. He determined it's either the relays in that box, one of them has gone bad. Those do fail over time. It's not likely, but it's possible. And then he also looked at the limit switches on all the doors, and they were very corroded and they weren't totally sealed. So he said that we should get new switches there as well, because that could be sending a signal back, like don't open the Glockenspiel because the door's already open, or just something weird. And so all those parts are on order. And well, basically we've learned we need to have like 2 of everything. So you could just start swapping stuff in and figure out what's wrong. Right now we don't have spares of anything on the Glockenspiel. So those parts were ordered, I think, on Monday or Tuesday. And hopefully we'll get it all fixed soon. But right now the music plays and the chime happens, just nothing opens or spins or anything, unless they do it manually. That's the update.
All righty. Brock wants one more.
Sorry, I got 2 more things. Sorry. First is combined meeting with Ivans in January. They've proposed 2 dates to do it. The last week of January, either the 25th or 26th. So the 25th is our regular scheduled meeting on Wednesday, and the 26th is their regularly scheduled meeting. So we can choose to either do it on our regular night or their regular night.
A preference, council?
So if we did it on their night, we could choose to still hold a meeting on the 25th.
They came on our night last time, right?
I believe so, yes.
So we should go on theirs.
All right, I'll tell Dell January 26th.
And then you can look at what you need for an agenda and make a decision on the 25th.
Okay. And then the other item, keep your calendars out, please. Budget retreat. We're looking at Thursday, February 16th, or Wednesday, the 22nd, which is on a regular scheduled council meeting, I believe, or the 23rd. Actually, I take that back. That's the 3rd week, the 23rd. Is that right? What is that, 4th? Anywho, 22nd, 23rd, or the 16th.
My vote's the 16th.
You run those dates, the February 16th
February 16th,
or
February 22nd, or February 23rd.
you're looking at an afternoon? What do you,
Can do,
morning?
we can do either, whatever works.
The 16th is the week we have off, so
I would
maybe that's
prefer the 16th.
16th,
Fine.
16th it is. February 16th. We can do as a normal start 11:30, 12, bring with lunch and go to work. Okay. All right, that's all. Thank you.
Okay.
Uh-oh.
What?
Is there any feelings towards December 28th, city council meeting? To have or cancel that meeting? Oh, I thought you were gonna say you'd like to have it.
That's the public hearing for the SID.
The 28th is a public hearing for the SI.
That's the proposed SID public.
Oh, we do need to have that.
Merry Christmas.
Maybe that's a good week to have it.
That's
'Cause
what I'm thinking.
lots of people will be,
People are
lots
gone.
of people will be
We
gone.
just need to go door to door. I'm gonna literally start that. Door to door.
I'm glad to see some volunteers. That effort's happened like 4 times.
And like we're not going through this. I'm not going through this.
The Ivans thing was the
Okay.
12th, right?
Cancel the meeting.
Ivan's,
Combined
mine would be January 26th.
26th. Okay.
And canceling the December 28th meeting.
Okay.
Everybody's okay with that?
I'll be gone. So yeah,
Well, that's the reason we're doing it.
there we go.
Just for the
Cancel the
press.
28th.
Okay, before anybody says anything else, this meeting is adjourned.
They're getting more snow today, so. Mayor's saying his prayers, getting the snowpack.
Well,